From the Smith Radio Studios, it's Carrie and Brian Smith. This is Smith Radio.
Ooh, man.
You can tweet at Smith Radio, SMYTH Radio. And now, your host, Carrie and Brian Smith.
Hey, folks, how you doing this evening? Sunday evening, 5 to 8 p.m. Eastern, Military Veteran Talk Radio. That is Smith Radio. Brian Smith here.
And Carrie Smith.
Giving you late-breaking news, wrapping it all up, making sense of it all, explaining it to you the way that it should be explained, exposing the fake news. Exposing the fake news for what it really is and just laying it all out there on the line. And, folks, you know, we talked before about the coup, and now we're talking about the failed attempt to coup. However, we still have a violent party in the mix right now, a violent party. The Democrat Party is reeling with violence, and there's all kinds of information that's out there right now. Breaking news for Sunday, Portland,
Oregon, yeah.
Portland, Oregon. Sunday, we got some video clips on that. We'll talk about that. That wraps up in this whole entire. To simplify it all, the Democrat Party, it really thought that they had us on the train of socialism headed to Commie Town. They thought they had it all sewed up. But Donald Trump proved them wrong and said, no, we're not taking that train. We're going on the Trump train. So now they're so all upset and they don't know what to do. George Soros and the likes are starting riots and fires and fake news and wag the dog, all this fakery, separation at the border. Now they're gripping onto their abortion. We got new justices about Supreme Court justices be appointed. I've got some great news on that about that coming up. Donald Trump tweeting out about that earlier, as well as some educational videos from Prager University. I got 3 different ones for PragerU. They're about 4.5 minutes long each, but phenomenal videos that you can share with your friends and your family, and they absolutely make sense. Hashtag Walkaway is now becoming a real thing, folks.
It's like a real movement.
There's a gay, regardless, but I'm saying this because the Democrat Party makes this a point. If you're gay, you're black, you're a woman, you're whatever you are, they label you and they call you these things. So the whole point is, gay hairdresser in New York City, hashtag I walked away. 5-minute rant, just a really good rant on YouTube. I've got that, and we will absolutely play that. This is where it's come to, folks. Conservatives are now looking at normal, average, everyday folks and say, you've got to walk away from the violence. It is so bad. It is so ugly. It is so angry, and it's so obvious.
Yeah.
That if you're not walking away from it, you're part of it. If you don't walk away, you're part of it.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's called disavow. Disavow. That is so critical at this point. I can't stress that enough.
Oh, and the new trailer for Dinesh D'Souza's movie, his new trailer is out. He emailed it to me earlier, just a couple days ago. Said, hey, Brian, play this.
Okay. All right.
So we got that. We got the new trailer, which goes in line with all of this, folks. Here on Smith Radio, we've been doing this. This is our 5th year of doing this. And the reason why we did this originally was to document the demise of America and how it was falling apart under Barack Obama, and there was no return. We were over the event horizon, and we weren't coming back. Quickly turned around. Folks, we are here because we are Donald Trump's legacy. When I say that, I mean you and I. Carrie, you, I, all of us. We are Donald Trump's legacy. After 8 years of his presidency, it's us. It's it. It's us. And we got to continue to carry on the torch. So that's what we're doing now here with Smith Radio. We want to expose the left for who they are, the ideologies around the world on display, as ideas from the left are completely destroying civilizations.
And we are going to get into the details of that in the next 3 hours. That was a great summary. So what do we start first?
We can, if you want, we can start with the Walkaway campaign. I mean,
yeah, this is interesting. I might need you to get me up to speed. I understand what it is, and of course, we're going to inform you. Most people that are listening right now already know what the gist of it is. Apparently, if you are a Democrat, and particularly it seems like somebody who is active in politics, not just some passive, oh yeah, I'm for helping people.
He uses the word liberal. I used to be a liberal.
Okay. And that's kind of, I'll tell you what, everything's getting muddy now. Because, like,
what's a classic liberal compared to a North American liberal?
Yeah, and in Europe, they use the word liberal, but its definition is quite different. And by the way, liberal in America used to mean something quite different. In fact, we used to call it liberal with the definition that the Europeans are using today, and then it kind of morphed into like a cuss word. Like you did not want to be called a liberal. In fact, in the 80s and 90s, it was the biggest insult to be called a liberal. And then after a while, the Democrats started embracing that title again. Because
socialism is bad, progressivism is bad, and so they got to pick up something else.
And the whole thing is just weird because, I mean, classical liberal is like what we are.
Correct.
But you would never say that in America because everybody would be like, oh, you vote for Democrats? Like, no, I'm a classic liberal. What, you just said liberal. So, yeah, anyway, but the liberals, the American liberals, are having a meltdown big time. The big thing, so the Walkaway thing. So if you are a Democrat for a long time and you were active in it, you were somebody that would learn what the liberal ideology is, what the politics are behind it, who the politicians are that have a D next to their name, so Democrats. You were into that stuff and you knew it, and then you're smart enough to think for yourself. You're independent, intellectually independent, meaning that you take all the facts in and you use a thing up here called your brain to do a little processing. You do a little processing of all the information and you come up with your own conclusion. Now, I know that sounds very like I'm being condescending and insulting to a lot of people's intelligence, but apparently it is a very popular thing it's actually more popular than not to just, take everybody's word for it and come up. You basically say what your conclusion is, but you're really just repeating what you heard somewhere because you're just deferring to their expertise or whatnot. And that's the problem. But if you're an independent-minded person, you could and should come to the determination that liberalism, Democrats in America, are so bad, their ideology is so bad, that you walk away. And I can really relate to this because I was so bleeding heart liberal for a long time when I was growing up, and I didn't know. I'm a product of a inner city public school.
Right.
So a lot of this stuff, I was learning about my world in a classroom full of these liberal teachers telling me what the world is about and what's good and what's bad, what's right and what's wrong. And I just took their word for it. And when you get out into the real world and you start to see this stuff applied in real life, you start to realize, I'm starting to doubt what I was learning all this time. And then at some point, you get to a point where you just walk away. And that became a hashtag.
And I had always believed that I was a conservative. I slipped in for a long time into the mindset of a victocrat. I was a victim of society.
Okay.
It was never my fault. It was always somebody else's fault. And that's a liberal mindset, folks. And I had that, but all along thinking that I was a conservative, but not yet taking full responsibility, personal responsibility for myself and everything around me. Once you make those leaps and those steps, you can kind of start to see what you've left behind, and you can see the other people and what they're doing and the mistakes that they're making. At one point in time, I was infallible. It wasn't my fault. Just like the Gen X that I work with, this dude, he could never, ever, ever be wrong. Screams. He does. You know the bumper stickers. The liberals are all about bumper stickers.
Oh, have you ever seen the back of a active liberal, the back of their car? You can't even see any paint job. It's just covered.
Right. And so this liberal that I know really well, he would use bumper sticker slogans as he'd drive by me and not even stop. I couldn't even dispute it because
he was doing this verbally.
Yes, but he could never debate it, and he could never be wrong. So if you can never debate your ideologies and you can never be wrong,
right?
You put up this wall, this you lock everybody out and everything out, and you get stuck into the.
Well, you definitely, as far as wisdom and knowledge and just general intelligence, you're definitely on a plateau because we aren't born geniuses.
No.
You think Albert Einstein was able to come up with E equals MC square when he was 4 or 5 years old.
Right.
Of course not. It took a lifetime of learning all kinds of stuff and then building on it. And when you close your mind down to ideas that could be different than yours, or maybe a challenge to your own orthodoxy, all of the sudden, you have just plateaued in your journey to become a genius. So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like this Gen X guy is kind of falling down that issue. I don't want to call it a rabbit hole, but, yeah, like, you know, you don't want to be totally closed-minded. To this day, after all these years of making conclusions on all these different issues, I'm still listening intently. I'm waiting for some gem of knowledge to come out where somebody will say, Carrie, I know you've thought this one way for many, many years, and this is why you're wrong. I'm always looking out for that, right?
Right.
And that way, if I can make that change, I've went from being less intelligent to more intelligent, if I can make that change. And after all these years of doing that, I've actually been doing that, I feel like if I could go back in time and see myself 20 years ago, I'd be like, wow, this guy's a moron.
Well, I would definitely say the decisions I've made 20 years ago were just, and I see young kids in their 20s making those decisions, and I just like, man, really? Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that hard. And something about education real quick that kind of triggered my thought. Education, the word education goes way back into Latin. If you look it up and you really study the word education, it basically means to draw from within, to draw out of from within, to lead out of.
Okay.
And I can only surmise that means to lead out of darkness, to get yourself out of that and to move into something where you can have an understanding of your surroundings, ideologies, and then grow and prosper from there. But if you got the mental block, if you got the lockdown,
you're stuck. You're not going anywhere.
And you've seen it, right? You've seen young 20-year-olds who, well, I mean, you might even have been there, where everything was, you could do no wrong.
Well, it usually starts right around 13, 14 years old when mom and dad are idiots and you know everything.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
That's kind of where it starts.
And if you don't grow out of that and move beyond that and you stay in that at 39 years old.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, dude.
Well, you know where I see it the worst is when people are so scared of letting somebody else know that they don't know something. That's actually a big problem. Like you just act like you knew, like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. And when you have no idea, I'm different. I want people to believe, even if it's totally wrong. I want a stranger, somebody that doesn't know me, to believe that they know way more than me, and that I'm interested in learning from them. And all of a sudden they open up. Like
you talk about getting somebody to throw up on you.
Oh yeah, wow. All of a sudden they'll open right up because they're excited to teach you.
Yeah,
and I just want to hear where they're coming from. So
you got to be strong enough though not to be sucked in to something that's wrong.
I mean, at my age,
I'm not speaking to you. I'm just speaking to other folks that are going to attempt what you're talking about.
Right. Well, you got to know where you're at. Now, there's a lot of times when I'm doing this and I genuinely don't know. I'm actually trying to learn something that I didn't know before. And it may not have to do with politics, but it could be anything. Like, so Brian, what is the thermostat in the engine? Like, I sincerely don't know. Like, what was that? The part we replaced in the truck.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know
thermostat.
that was. Yeah, I had no idea what that did.
Well, I had no idea that one could be mangled up so bad that it was broken into pieces.
It has one moving part.
It had multiple pieces.
Yeah,
completely apart.
So it's like somebody hit it with a sledgehammer.
I mean, it is a Chrysler.
So the point is that I genuinely was interested in learning like why that's there and how it works, and Brian was able to explain it to me, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm not going to sit there and say, "Yeah, Brian, I knew that." Yeah, I knew that.
And when you do that, you never learn. And there's also another type of person that'll say, "Yeah, I'd love to learn that, but just can you do it for me real quick?" Oh, thanks, man.
So yeah.
And we know folks like that, too. And for those of you out there that need work on your car, don't call me. I don't know how to do it. I don't know nothing. No, nothing.
You turn the key towards you, right?
Yes, that's all.
Okay. Or is it away from you? I think it's away from you.
Whatever you want.
Anyway, so we're talking about Walkaway hashtag. It's amazing. I feel like the internet has a lot to do with this because I remember politics before the internet or at the very, very, very early stages. And it was kind of like just this open town hall kind of it was like the town square where the crier would come in and say the sky is falling and whatnot. It was just everybody yelling at each other and arguing.
The message, if you want to go back far enough.
Message board. Yes, Yahoo message board. And that was a free-for-all, but it was a lot of fun. You think Twitter's bad?
No.
Dude, the Yahoo message boards. Now, of course, it was very well done.
But it was unrated. There was no restricting of anything. It was
for a long time. For a long time. And they had it very well organized. They had a different category for every message board, and it was very comprehensive. There was a Yahoo message board in the sports section, subtitle boxing. It was like my favorite place to go.
Wow.
And it was just like 20 to 30 of us arguing over who was a better all-time boxer, Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson. Oh my gosh, those debates went on for years. But anyway, but if you go to the politics section, whoo, talk about fireworks. Nothing was as crazy as the 2000 hanging Chad election.
Oh yeah,
that was actually the catalyst that ended up within, I'd say, maybe a year or so. The CEOs and staff at Yahoo decided we need to do something about this, and that was the end of Yahoo. When Yahoo cracked down on conservatives, that was it.
They were going to fix the election so that this didn't happen again.
Well, it wasn't that. It was just a retaliation. What they were doing was they were shutting people's accounts down. And you got to understand, it's not like Twitter. You know, we're at Smith Radio. He's at Brian P. Smith. If Twitter comes along and shuts his hashtag down, his account, let's say, he just doesn't get to use that account on Twitter. He'd come up with an alt, and he'd have to get people to try to follow him again and find him, and it would just be a hassle. On Yahoo, everything was attached to your email address. It was whatever at yahoo.com.
And your personal stuff.
It was
everything.
All your family members would email you using that email address. There were a lot of people who owned businesses that used that Yahoo account as their business email address. And there were people that were getting that entirely shut down, totally locked out. You couldn't log in or anything. It was totally suspended. And it was having a very dramatic effect on their life. And so that was the end of that. But not to get too far off on a tangent, but fast forward, I think that the information, the reason I brought up the internet as it relates to the Walkaway hashtag, the thing that was different back then than what we see today is people have access to real information on both sides where they could see the full spectrum of everything.
Well, look at what we were looking at Portland this morning. We were looking at Portland. Well, not only that, but we got good friends that live in Iran who have video on the ground, and they send it to us. They DM me or they DM Carrie.
Anywhere in the world, right?
Yeah, about the videos that they're filming in Iran that is not allowed to leave Iran.
Wow. So the Walkaway hashtag is something that can take off today, because I think that there are Democrats, just like I was at one point, that are able to make the determination, the conclusion on their own, using facts that are available to them, unlike ever before in history, where they could say, you know what, the Democrat Party really is, excuse me, it really is a negative thing for my life. And not just my life, but my neighbors' lives. And if you extrapolate that further, it's society as a whole, right? If it's bad for society, which in turn is bad for my neighbors and bad for my family and bad for me, I think it's time to walk away. And they can make a conclusion based on all of the evidence, all of the facts. And that's where this walkaway comes from. That's why the walkaway wouldn't have worked 15 years ago.
Right. And I don't agree with removing the Democrat Party completely. I think the Democrat Party serves a great purpose in showing everybody there's two options. You can do it right or you could do it wrong.
Right.
It's the law of the land versus the law of the university. Law of the land, you would know all about this. You cannot rush in August, one weekend, plant your crops and hope to get them to go. Versus the law of the university, you cram the night before, take the exam.
Interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
It wasn't me that made this conclusion. It was Brian Tracy, a leader and motivational speaker. But the two different ideologies, law of the university and law of the land. And think about it, going through the university just to pass, just to get by, just to get through, know what you have to do. Could you imagine if if somebody tasked you to do whatever landscape job that they want, and you say, yeah, I'll get to it the last minute. You can't. You got to prepare for that.
Right, especially like when it requires a lot of materials to bring in. That all has to be planned out. But, yeah, I mean, that totally makes sense.
Like if they wanted a certain plant that would die in the fall, but they wanted you to plant it right now. I want it planted now.
Well, I can give you a better example. There's people that demand to have full sunlight plants planted in the shade. I'm telling you, man. I am telling you, it just does not work. Or they want grass planted in full shade. And it just...
Right. So that's pretty much what it is. I mean, the folks, the law of the land, whether you're raising crops or harvesting, you got to do it, September, you got to get ready. You got to get ready for October, the winter through. Mm-hmm. Are you preparing that land to go to seed it again this year? Or are you going to let this piece sit until next year so it can refertilize or whatever thing happens?
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely so you're talking more like natural law.
Correct, okay. Natural law, and the liberal ideology is in stark contrast of natural law. Instant gratification. I want it here. I want it now, and I don't give two F's about what's going to happen tomorrow.
Right, and you would agree that just the entire ideology of the left seems to fly in the face of human nature.
Oh,
and that's the problem. You don't want to cut against the grain too hard because then people are going to do what people want to do. And if you fight against that too hard, you're really just introducing a tyranny.
Right. I hung out with your dad this past week in Vegas. I'm back, everybody. I'm back. Didn't lose too much money. I'm good. I'm happy.
All right. That's good.
But he was telling me about this history series he was watching. It was 16 hours long.
Wow.
That's the first half.
So it's 32 hours.
Yeah. But he made the comment about the emperors. Throughout all of history, this professor made it a point to show that the folks who became emperors at a young age, very young youth, maybe 8, 9, 10, teens.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the boy kings or whatever,
right.
The childhood kings. Yeah.
Always wound up being the worst rulers ever.
Is anybody surprised? I mean, come on.
Well, this goes, I'm just trying to make my point here, the law of the land, natural law.
Right.
The best rulers and the best kings didn't take power until their 40s.
Okay.
And there's a growing up process, and if you're handed everything, if you live in your mom's basement, Keith Olbermann, at 56 years old.
He's more than 56, isn't he?
66. I don't know, whatever it be. We've got a problem here. Yeah. So now we're having to show the millennials and having to teach them in their 20s and late 20s what they should have been learning when they were 17 and 18. So they're a decade behind.
I'd say. Wow. Yeah. I mean, you realize that our greatest generation, our grandparents, were storming the beaches of Normandy. When we grew up with them, they were like these old, hard,
Mad Dog Mattis.
Yeah, they're like these. Well, he I'm talking way older.
But I mean, just those nicknames that they would give those kind of guys.
They were the grandpas. Everybody my age grew up with a grandpa that was a World War II veteran, and we saw them as these old wise men, right? But it's amazing when you think back. They were 18 storming the beaches of Normandy. 18, 19, 20. I mean, they were babies by today's standards. You take a 17, 18, 19-year-old today and you're just like, boy, you ain't like my grandpa. Well, actually, grandpa looked like that. Probably was a little bit more advanced as far as maturity and education and outlook on the world.
Right. No, and I honestly believe that that in the shielding of the baby boomers, they're our grandparents shielding the baby boomers from what they had to live through, what they went through, the horror. There's only one story that ever came out of my grandfather, and that was pretending to be dead on the battlefield while the Japanese were coming through.
That's
sticking
nuts.
bodies with bayonets. And for some reason, they didn't stick him, and they took his wallet and his cigarettes and his lighter.
He's a good actor.
He was a good actor.
You got to go straight method on that.
Well, I mean, you talk about going to the bathroom on yourself. I mean, it ain't no joke, folks. So, but here's the thing, though. They wanted to shield their children from ever having to live through or visit that kind of horror. And I think in doing so, a majority of them spoiled the hell out of the baby boomers. And the baby boomers at one point, at this point in time, our economy was booming. They had almost everything they ever wanted and lived an, I'd say, exponentially more profitable lifestyle than their parents did.
Right.
And so fast forward to now we got to sort all this out. I mean, we talk about the law of the land or instant gratification. I mean, I'm not going to name names or anything, but, when you're at the grocery store and you're joking with your kids, it's just plastic. It's not like it's money. It's just joke. And you're joking. No, man, that's not a way to teach your kids.
Greatest generation had to buy everything with cash. It was the baby boomer generation that was introduced to the plastic.
Oh, the credit cards through the roof, loans, the home loans, the car loans, the loan loans.
I need a loan for my loan. Isn't that what credit cards do today? They're like, pay off all your debt. Sign up for a credit card.
And you got so much that you could get a timeshare. And you're like, what's a timeshare? Oh man,
goodness.
Let me get you to this one.
You want to be on vacation in this same spot every year? Boy.
I'm telling you, man, if you JOB, just over broke.
Wow.
You don't want that?
Wow.
So why don't you get into this network marketing scheme?
Oh, boy. How do we go? All right, so.
I'm sorry.
Hashtag walk away. Just walk away from all that.
Walk away from the Democrats. Walk away from all that stuff. So we have this guy that is a gay bartender or gay hairstylist. I'm thinking the bartender that's 28 years old, the socialist that beat out that Democrat. Anyway, we'll get to her in a minute. But this I think he's in his 20s, but he's a hairdresser and he's gay out of New York. He helped to start and perpetuate this movement, hashtag walkout, from Facebook, on YouTube. Millions have viewed this. I probably just look at my notes. The walkout movement began with a popular Facebook video featuring a gay hairdresser in New York City explaining why he was leaving the Democrat Party, has quickly morphed into a major force on social media and beyond. According to an article last Thursday, the Epoch Times, some 5 million people on Facebook and YouTube have seen the groundbreaking video showing a very handsome gay man who describes his awakening to to liberalism and the Democrat Party. And he starts out saying, once upon a time, I was a liberal. Well, to be honest, less than a year ago, I was still a liberal.
Wow.
So with that being said, this is a couple of minutes long, but it's very good. And I think it absolutely needs to be said because this is, I believe, and I think Carrie will agree with it, this is what our show is about. It's about showcasing folks who've left the plantation.
Right. And because it's like an educational thing, right? Our show. I mean, that was my dream of this. My dream is maybe get somebody that isn't totally sure about what it is that's right and wrong as far as politics or ideology is concerned, and just tell them what I've learned, and maybe, just maybe, they'll be like, I'll think about that. And then, it plants a seed. Right. So I love it.
Speaking about that, somebody planted a seed in you years ago about Christianity, which I thought was an amazing story.
Yeah, belief in God.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
It was a seed planted a little bit. You never know.
Yeah, and the funny thing was we left that conversation with me just saying, I'll think about it. And just, as far as he was concerned, didn't get through to me.
He'll never know.
No, he does. I ended up messaging him on Facebook.
Good times, man. I bet he feels good about that.
I should hope so. I think he's an atheist now. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
They were just jokes. They were just jokes. Hey, folks, if this is the first time you watch the show, again, this is Smith Radio, Military Veteran Talk Radio. Crush the share, crush the follow, and crush the like if you got a heart there or something. Like it. Share it with your friends and your family. And this is the hashtag Walkaway movement. And this is the gay hairdresser out of New York City, which I couldn't get a hold of his name. But it is what it is.
Once upon a time, I was a liberal. Well, to be honest, less than a year ago, I was still a liberal. I became a liberal because I felt I'd found a tribe whose values align with my own. I staunchly reject racism of any kind. I reject the marginalization of any human being based off of their gender or sexual orientation. I reject tyrannical groupthink. I reject a system which allows an ambitious, misinformed, and dogmatic mob to suppress free speech, create false narratives, and apathetically steamroll over the truth. I reject the acceptance of junk science and superstition to advance ideological agendas. I reject hate. These are the reasons why I became a liberal. And these are the same reasons why I am now walking away.
Wow.
For years now, I have watched as the left has devolved into intolerant, inflexible, illogical, hateful, misguided, ill-informed, un-American, hypocritical, menacing, callous, ignorant, narrow-minded, and at times, blatantly fascistic behavior and rhetoric. Liberalism has been co-opted and absorbed by the very characteristics it claims to fight against. For years now, I've watched as people on the left have become anesthetized to their own prejudices and bigotry, and the prejudices and bigotry of those around them who echo their values. I have watched as formerly sensible people who claim to reject racism have come to embrace the principles of universally hating and blaming all of society's problems on all people who have white skin. I have witnessed the irony of advocacy for gender equality morph into blatant hatred and intolerance of men and masculinity. I have seen the once earnest fight for equality for the LGBT community mutate into an illogical demonization of heteronormativity and the push to vilify and attack our conventional concepts of gender. These same self-proclaimed victims of intolerance now turning on the gay community that they attached themselves to advance their agenda, now calling gay people privileged and themselves victims of injustice. I have watched as the left has allowed themselves to become hypnotized by false narratives and conclusions perpetuated by social justice warriors who misrepresent and misconstrue facts, evidence, and events to confirm their own biases that everyone who does not comply with their prejudicial conclusions and follow their orders is a racist, a bigot, a Nazi, a white supremacist, homophobic, Islamophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, and alt-right extremist. And I have watched as they have used these heartless and carelessly assigned labels to intimidate, threaten, bully, silence, attack, unemploy, blacklist, and destroy anybody who dares to fight back. They'll come for me, and then they'll come for you. And worst of all, the Democratic Party and the liberal media has embraced, affirmed, aided, and abetted this cult ideology. In an effort to gain voters and maintain power, the Democratic Party that I once loved has joined forces with the extremist left. The Democratic Party and the liberal media now believe their own ill-gotten conclusions and have ominously decided that they, and only they, know the remedy for society's ills. The left has decided that the solution to problems with race relations in America is more racism. The left believes that attacking, insulting, and dehumanizing one group of people elevates another. The left now believes that there are no boundaries when telling lies, omitting the truth, or misrepresenting facts when telling the news, because their end justifies their means. The left has now decided that its point of view is the only acceptable one, and that suppressing, censoring, and banning open dialogue and debate is virtuous and progressive. The Democratic Party has adopted a deleterious belief system, happily and without skepticism, separating people into groups based off of identity, and then organizing them into camps of victims and oppressors. If you are a person of color, an LGBT person, a woman, or an American immigrant, the Democratic Party wants you to know that you are a victim and destined to stay that way. They will insist that you are a victim doomed to exist within a system that is rigged against you, that you are a victim of systemic oppression, that you are a victim of your circumstances, and that no amount of hard work or motivational action will ever allow you to overcome your victimhood or the privilege of those around you. This is perhaps the Democratic Party's greatest and most insidious lie. But if you are a minority in America today, the left-wing politicians and the liberal media don't want you to ever discover this lie. So they bombard us with stories designed to reinforce the narrative that you are in danger, that you cannot succeed. They manipulate your fears and concerns by telling you that you are disadvantaged, disempowered, and disposable to everyone except them. They will tell you that you need them. They will tell you that you are only safe under their supervision. They will promise to liberate you from all that chains you. And then they will do absolutely nothing for you. Once upon a time, I was a liberal. But liberalism has changed, and I will no longer be a part of an ideology or political party that represents everything that contradicts my values of unity, equal opportunity, personal empowerment, compassion, and love. So I am walking away. And I encourage all of you to do the same. Walk away.
What a great video.
I mean, it was a little long, folks, but you had to hear it. You had to hear it. And for those of you who are listening audio only and didn't get to see the video of that, there were a lot of the anti-fascist, violent pictures of the violent anti-fascist burning flags, burning signs that say freedom of speech.
Just being violent. And wow, you know, it's interesting. I love the way he articulated that. I mean, we've heard this all before as right-wingers describe it. You know, your Paul Joseph Watson probably has a dozen videos describing a portion of everything that he said there. He put it all together, but just putting it all together in the way that he did just kind of gets my mind thinking, like, you know, fighting racism with racism is you know, it kind of made me kind of conjured up a memory of mine where a long time ago the liberals used to make this argument that we need to provide contraceptive to junior high and high school students because we're nuts to think that we can convince them to abstain from sex because they're going to have sex. Meanwhile, I was a virgin, and it tricked me into thinking that I was the only virgin, and that
me too.
It made me like hypersexual, like I needed to find a girl to not be the last one standing. I always felt like I was the last one standing because it was beat into my head that everybody was having sex, and if you're not, whew, I'm sorry about your luck, buddy.
Big old loser.
Yeah, big old loser. And then you know, fast forward all these years later, and I look back and I see high school kids today, and I'm just like, yeah, we were all like, the amount of sex that's being had is probably minimal.
A fraction.
Now here's my point.
Talked about.
My point is that it kind of made me feel like his video made me realize that liberals have made the conclusion, they've never said this. This is my words, but hey, doesn't it sound like this is true? Hey, people are racist. They're going to be we can't stop racism.
Right. Yeah.
So instead of trying to get people to not be racist because people are just going to be racist, hey, we need to fight fire with fire. We need to be more racist than them. We need to fight them with more racism. We need to reverse the racism on them. If they're going to hate black people, we need to hate white people. Meanwhile, it's all a lie. Just like they're going to have sex anyway was a lie, right?
Yes.
We don't hate black people. There's a lot of black conservatives. What, are they racist against black people? Is that how it works? They call them Uncle Toms and Aunt Jemimas and all this. It's all a big lie, and yet they're using that as an excuse to start this big racist campaign against white, straight, heterosexual men.
Right. Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
He said, when I was in Vegas, my wife and I ran into these three older black women, probably 50s, and one might be in her 60s, retired. And we were chit-chatting, and something just came up. They were real lively and outgoing and funny. And I looked at the one, and I said, not to be political or anything, but I'm curious. You're from New Jersey. You're out here in Vegas, living life. What do you think of Donald Trump?
Ooh, wow, that's forward. That's forward. And you know what? I don't expect anything less out of Brian.
She looked at me with the eye. You really gonna ask 3 black women?
Oh, no, you didn't.
About Donald Trump? And I said, oh, no. I'm curious. You're East Coast. He's East Coast. I didn't know. And
the same neighborhood, roughly. Jersey, New York. Whatever.
It quickly was racist, bigot, sexist, homophobe. And then it went off of that, and we got away from that. And then we got back to joking around, and they were cool with us. We were cool. And never did either one of us entertain the notion that either one of us was racist.
So you were hoping that they were going to say, oh, we love him.
Yeah, I was.
Didn't work?
No, didn't work.
Wow. Okay.
But that's only 3. That's only 3. And I did tell them, because they mentioned, I don't know if you know this, Carrie, but in Vegas.
Vegas is my second home, so there's a good chance I may know this.
Marijuana dispensaries are plentiful.
Okay.
You can walk in 24/7, pick up gummy.
With a doctor prescription?
No.
What?
Completely recreational.
Okay.
You can walk in and pick up some gummy bears or blunts or whatever.
Okay.
And walk right on out. No big deal. And totally legal. So that kind of came up in the conversation because I'm dumbfounded by that. Here in Cincinnati, woo. I mean, I just found out that it's legal in Ohio if you have a prescription.
Okay.
There's a town called 7 Mile up north of here that's been devastated. There ain't nothing there. So they put a weed dispensary there. Hey, I digress. So that came up, and I told the ladies, I said, hey, did you hear a couple weeks ago Donald Trump said he's going to remove the federal ban on weed?
What'd they say?
They got excited, but God, they ain't going to give him no credit for it. It's a weird, this whole thing about trying to admit you're wrong.
Enough people will give him credit. Maybe not them.
Right.
But a percentage will, and that percentage is going to be devastating for the Democrats.
And just like abortion, I know because the Democrats will not let go. It was as bad as trying to get their slaves out of their hands back in 1865. To get abortion out of the hands of the liberals is just as hard.
It's a weird thing the way they've made this their main banner issue. It's like, if there's one last issue that we get to have and hold and to have it be the way we want it to be, if there's just one, it's got to be abortion. That's pretty weird, isn't it?
It's very strange. And so the only reason why I mentioned that, and we'll get to more news about that from this week, the only reason why I mentioned that is because even if the Supreme Court rules, say Donald Trump says, okay, no federal ban on weed, it's over, I put a ban on weed. Okay. That would be the same exact result as the Supreme Court saying that abortion is not legal. What do I mean? All the power is shifted back to the states. Everything goes back to the states. So even Donald Trump, and I'm not trying to minimize Trump saying that, ban the ban on weed. I'm not trying to minimize that, but I want to be honest and be serious about it. If any liberal comes up to you and says that, it's not that big a deal, it's whatever, he would have to be kind of smart to know that, or she would have to be smart to know that all that does is that it shifts the power 100% back to the states.
Right. Now, for executive order, that's temporary because it could be reversed with the new president. So as opposed to the Supreme Court where they set precedent and then it's just kind of like the Roe v. Wade is, decades and decades ago. And that needs to be totally revisited for that to be turned around.
I read into that a little bit deeper for the first time here just recently. And folks, if you don't know, I was born in 1973. And the woman that gave birth to me at 15 had that option for abortion, but instead gave me up for adoption. And I dodged 2 bullets. That one, the abortion bullet, and that bullet, that was no good. Anyways, folks, so I dodged a couple of bullets there. With that being said, before Roe v. Wade, it was all up to the states. then the woman that is named in Roe v. Wade, it's not really her name. They just kind of changed it to protect her, I guess. But she's outspoken about it. She never had an abortion. She was very young, and she had a lawyer that took advantage of her story and her situation and propelled this up to the Supreme Court. And it's just...
She's totally pro-life.
Yes!
Totally pro-life.
Yes!
Yeah, she's angry that she was used in that way, and she wishes it wasn't ruled that way.
Right. Right.
So that's a shame for her to have to live with that. But it's good that she's at least outspoken about the fact that she's pro-life.
Absolutely. So I saw that on Twitter. And this information, folks, that's coming to us at our fingertips every single day, 24 hours, 7 days a week. It's because of the technology that we live with that is actually exposing the evils of the left every moment, every second, every day. Did you know there was an election held in Mexico for the president?
Yeah, I just heard that this morning.
Yeah, we might get into that. I mean, it's more communism, socialism on display. It's wretched awful.
Right. You know what it really boils down to? Mexico's always been our enemy. We have never really... People say, oh, it's our allies. Not really. Not really. We had a war with them, and we've never really been friendly ever since.
It's never picked back. It's never gone the other way.
Yeah, I think the friendliest thing that's ever happened between us and Mexico was a deal. I don't even know what the name of it was, but a deal where we got to get some land from the northern edge of Mexico, which we now know as part of New Mexico, Arizona, and California. That's about the only halfway friendly thing that's ever happened. And the reason we got that land was because it was the only route, the only southern route for railroads. Because of the mountains, the Rocky Mountains prohibits you from just having a railroad go right through from like the east to the west. So we needed some of the land in the south that was actually part of Mexico in order to get a railroad through there, through this real close to the border. But that's like it. Like we're not friends with Mexico.
Right. And so now Mexico has just completely slipped the wrong way. This was reported by Breitbart News this week. Mexico's presidency is going communism, following in the footsteps of Fidel Castro, Daniel Ortega, and Hugo Chavez. But Mexico is not 1,000 miles away like Venezuela or like tiny Cuba and Nicaragua. It's huge.
Yeah.
1/3 the size of the United States and shares a long border with the U.S. In the Mexican elections scheduled for July 1st, which was today, voters are apparently going to choose an authoritarian socialist, Andres Manuel Lopez, or Obrador, nickname AMLO.
That's his initials.
Okay. As their new president, AMLO leads the field with 51% of the vote, trailing the PAN candidate, Ricardo, at 25.
Wow.
And
that's a big deficit.
It's huge. So I don't know if you heard, but leading up to the election, 10 months leading up to the election, 136 politicians have been murdered and 581 have been attacked violently.
You know, it's kind of weird. It's like, what do you got? You got the cartels, or you have the citizenry. I don't know what they call them in Mexico, if they're called Mexican citizens or subjects. I don't know. But they apparently are voting communist. And this is kind of why we need to be really careful who's coming across the border. Are they communists or are they fleeing communism? That's a big deal. And obviously, you know, we hold the right to decide who gets in and who does not get into our country. And it's funny, Mexico or Mexicans, illegal immigration from Mexico has dropped very, very low. Most of the illegal immigrants that are flooding across the border are from neighboring countries to Mexico's south.
Oh, nice.
So, and it has to do with the law of accepting refugees and also invitations by Barack Obama and his administration.
Right. I was reading some articles this week, and they were showcasing CNN, Politico, showcasing different articles of individuals who came across the border. And one of the videos, they CNN caught up with some folks crossing the border, and they interviewed this young lad of 17 years old, and he said he left an abusive family home life to live freely in America.
So he's a runaway.
Yes, that's not a refugee.
No. And they said as little as 25% of the refugees even qualify for refugee status based on what they're saying the reason they're leaving their home country is.
Another one said that they had to leave their town because of threats from MS-13 and violence against their family. I'm sorry, that don't qualify.
Okay.
That's a local issue. You call the popo.
Right.
For those of you in Mexico, that's the policia.
I mean, could you...
The policia.
Could you imagine I show up at the doorstep of Mexico or Canada, whatever, and say, you gotta let me in.
McDonald's is out of French fries.
Oh, no, he did. Hey, that might actually work.
Call 911 in your town, folks.
That's right. You got me on that one. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I mean, that or just something like, this guy, this neighborhood guy, he's in a gang, man. He's in a gang, and I mean, he's trying to kill me. He said he wants to kill me.
He said he's going to kill my wife, my kids.
And he's got people, underlings, in his gang.
Oh, yeah.
You could just leave and go to a different city.
Or go to America.
No, I mean, I'm from America.
Live high on
yeah,
if this was happening in your town in America.
And I was going to Mexico or Canada or any other country in the world saying, you gotta let me in, bro.
They would say no.
The neighbor down the street trying to get me.
They would look at you so cross-eyed.
They'd be like, did you call 911?
You guys got a system there.
Could you move to a neighboring town?
Something.
Yeah, so that stuff's not working. It shouldn't work. Come on, people, get in line. We do have a legal immigration system. You can actually immigrate to America legally. And by the way, stop at a consulate. Don't just sneak into our border. Charlie Kirk, right?
Yeah, Charlie Kirk.
He tweeted something very interesting. He said, sneaking into our border and trying to say that makes you an immigrant is no different than breaking into somebody's house and trying to say you're part of the family now. He actually tweeted that out. That was a good
I'm
tweet.
one of your kids, man.
Smart analogy.
You need to pay for me, take care of me. I need.
I know what it looks like.
Yeah.
I know what it looks like. But I'm just trying to be part of the family.
That's all, man.
You guys look like nice people.
That's all. So, real quick, I know I haven't talked about Italy's new president or prime minister or whatever they call him in Italy, but he's a Donald Trump kind of guy.
Okay.
Even Trump tweeted out, "Hey, this is a good guy." So he got elected running on the notion that illegals pack your bags.
Okay.
You're going home.
All right.
And so apparently this week he flew to Libya. The president of Italy flew to Libya and negotiates a deal to stop immigrants from blasting the southern border into Italy.
Wow.
Because they got problems too, from those immigrants trying to get in. So I thought that was interesting that he's able to. The people of Italy are embracing a Trump-like. When I say nationalist, someone who has their national values at heart. Not nationalists as nationalist, neo-Nazi nationalist. I'm talking about nationalist.
You're talking about there's ethno-nationalism and then there's nationalism.
Okay.
Nationalism is when you feel like when it comes to policy, your country should take precedent over other countries.
Correct.
That's nationalism. Ethno-nationalism, or as the fake stream media likes to call it, white nationalism, is totally different. It's so different that when fake news calls people white nationalists or ethno-nationalists, if they're using that incorrectly or they're trying to just call somebody who claims to be a nationalist a white nationalist, it's so different that it's totally fake news. And a white nationalist would be somebody who believes that the white race should get their own country. I mean, that's a big difference.
Yeah.
On one hand, as a nationalist, you just want policies in your country to have preference towards the members of your country.
Right, to favor your citizenry.
Right, that's a nationalist. A white nationalist is somebody who's advocating for the white race having their own nation.
And that has never been the Republican Party.
Or anybody that we support or that we're friends with or that we follow, period. So anyway.
Now, you might like this one. This is from Prager University, PragerU, a former Young Turk.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I didn't know he was the Young Turk. And
Dave Rubin's?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, I keep forgetting. I actually was told that.
I didn't know he was gay either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, I'm a big fan of Dave Rubin, so I know all this stuff.
Oh!
What? Yeah, no, he's a good guy.
Okay, whatever.
Listen to him. Listen to Brian. Can't be friends with anybody anymore.
I mean, the joke. Come on, they jokes.
All right. So he's a good guy. He's one of these guys that, okay, I'm going to be honest with you. I did not follow Dave Rubin's back when he was liberal, but it's hard for me to even believe.
I can't. I know him now. I didn't know him back at the Young Turk days.
Like Tim Pool claims that he was liberal, and when I first started following him, I could see it. I could a little
bit, yeah.
I could see it. This was back when he was covering the San Jose riots. That's when I first discovered Tim Pool, and I enjoyed the fact that, well, number one, that he was in there and he was getting great footage, but also that he was very fair in his coverage. He wasn't trying to slant one way or the other, but I could see where he was. He claims he's more left than right. I think it's more center, but yeah, he's actually being accused of being alt-right now. And now Dave Rubin's too. People are calling Dave Rubin's a neo-Nazi alt-right guy. Yes.
Oh, come on. And we talked about this last week, the week before. Rush Limbaugh's talking about this. Tucker Carlson's talking about everybody's talking about this. This neo-Nazi has got to stop.
I'm okay with it now, not because
somebody's going to get hurt.
Oh, you're saying, yeah. Well, the whole punch a Nazi thing. So
right.
It's like, hey, you're a Nazi. Oh, yeah, okay, keep calling me that, because the false accusations have not only ceased to work anymore, but actually seem to work in our favor because people don't like to be lied about.
No.
But then when they campaign on punch a Nazi, and we're being falsely accused of being Nazis, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, this has kind of gotten violent all of a sudden.
You got a politician that's the head of the party for the most part, Mad Max, going out there saying to violently attack anybody in the Trump campaign.
You need to confront them.
No, man.
You need to push back.
Yeah, those are trigger words right there.
Well, I mean, people will. How? Definitely, there's going to be a certain population of people who are going to take that as meaning physically push back,
right.
And you know where that leads. We're going to get to that in Portland.
Portland, for real. So here's David Rubin's, and the title of this.
David, you got all technical.
What I call?
Well, he goes by Dave, I think. But if you want to call him David, I think he'll be okay with that.
I know him like that.
All right. No, that's the formal. I call him Mr. Rubens.
Mr. Rubens. Here's Mr. Rubens.
Here's Mr. Rubin.
And why I left the left.
Okay.
Do you believe in free speech? Do you believe that people should be judged by their character, not their skin color? Do you believe in freedom of religion? If you believe these things, you're probably not a progressive. You might think you're a progressive. I used to think I was. My show, The Rubin Report, was originally part of the Progressive Young Turks Network.
Wow.
Progressives struck me as liberals, but louder. Progressives were the nice guys. They looked out for the little guy. They cared about women and minorities. They embraced change. In short, who wouldn't want to be a progressive? But over the last couple of years, the meaning of the word progressive has changed. Progressives used to say, I may disagree with what you say, but I'll fight to the death for your right to say it.
We say that. Come on.
I don't remember that ever being true.
Yeah. I mean, well, not only that, but for him to say that makes it sound like we felt oppositely, and that's just not true.
Not anymore. Banning speakers whose opinions you don't agree with from college campuses, that's not progressive. Prohibiting any words not approved of as politically correct, that's not progressive. Putting trigger warnings on books, movies, music, anything that might offend people, that's not progressive either. All of this has led me to believe that much of the left is no longer progressive, but regressive. This is one of the reasons I've spent so much time on my show talking about the regressive left. This regressive ideology doesn't judge people as individuals, but as a collective. If you're black or female or Muslim or Hispanic or member of any other minority group, you're judged differently than the most evil of all things, a white Christian male. The regressive left ranks minority groups in a pecking order to compete in a kind of oppression Olympics. Gold medal goes to the most offended. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream that his children would be judged by their character and not their skin color was a liberal idea, but these days it's not a progressive ideal. And what about religious freedom, the idea that no one else can tell you what you have to believe? Surely progressives still support that basic right. Well, not so much. I'm a married gay man, so you might think that I appreciate the government forcing a Christian baker or photographer or florist to act against their religion in order to cater, photograph, or decorate my wedding. But you'd be wrong. A government that can force Christians to violate their conscience can force me to violate mine. If a baker won't bake you a cake, find another baker. Don't demand that the state tell him what to do with his private business. I'm pro-choice, but a government that can force a group of Catholic nuns, literally called the Little Sisters of the Poor, to violate their faith and pay for abortion-inducing birth control can force anyone to do anything. That's not progressive, that's regressive. Today's progressivism has become a faux moral movement hurling charges of racism, bigotry, xenophobia, homophobia, Islamophobia, and a slew of other meaningless buzzwords at anyone they disagree with. The battle of ideas has been replaced by a battle of feelings, and outrage has replaced honesty. Diversity reigns supreme as long as it's not that pesky diversity of thought. This isn't the recipe for a free society, it's a recipe for authoritarianism. For these reasons, I can no longer call myself a progressive. I don't really call myself a Democrat either. I'm a classical liberal, a free thinker, and as much as I don't like to admit it, defending my liberal values has suddenly become a conservative position. So if you think people should be able to say what they think without being punished for it, that people should be judged by their behavior, not their skin color, and that people should be able to live the way that they want to live without government interference, then there's not much left on the left for you. I'll keep trying to explain that to progressives until I'm totally left out. I'm Dave Rubin of The Rubin Report for Prager University.
To subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Oh, man, come on.
Go to PragerU and subscribe.
I hooked him up. I gave him props. But the way he comes off with that, I mean, you can tell he was definitely a lib. There's no question about that. And his right turns, if you will, or his hanging on to classic liberalism, I understand it. I see where he's going. But it bothers me when he says, and what did he say? I'm uncomfortable with finding myself as a Republican or a conservative. That
well, he's just not all the way there yet. He just hasn't. Well, and by the way, that's not a brand new video. That's actually been out for a little while. So yeah, I think he's gotten a little closer. And here's why. I truly believe that the conservatives, I don't want to try to throw a label on it, but I would call them Trump movement members of the Trump movement. I think is a little different than what we understand as Republicans or conservatives from 10, 15 years ago. I think it has changed because if you look at the Patriot Act, back then your average Republican was like, yeah, and you know what? If you're not doing anything wrong, then what are you worried about, right?
Oh, man.
Now we hear that now and we cringe. We're like, that's bad. That's really, 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 really bad.
And I heard that from higher ups. It wasn't just my own thought process. I heard that from grown ups.
Yeah, I mean, and I embrace that because I was thinking, we should do certain things for safety. We just had 9/11, and we shouldn't have that happen again. And the government should do their part to prevent future 9/11s and whatnot. And I felt like there needs to be this very powerful military and intelligence gathering forces and whatnot, your homeland securities and laws like the Patriot Act and whatnot, in order to make sure that this happens. And the problem is
we got a Manchurian candidate with Obama.
Yeah, and it was hard to believe that there would be a candidate that would come along or a president that would come along that would use that against the American people. It was just so hard to believe because it's never happened in my lifetime. No. And it just seemed like there would be presidents or people in charge that would be so patriotic that they would never do such a thing. And I'll be damned if it didn't take just a few short years later before the Patriot Act was being used against its own people. It just blows my mind how quickly these things. It's like you had that escalated quickly.
Oh,
you know?
yeah. No, yeah. I mean, you had everything from Lois Lerner and the IRS to Eric Holder and Fast and Furious.
Well, the FISA, the big thing is the FISA court.
Yeah, the FISA court, and we talked about that. Out of 10,000 FISA applications, 3 of them were rejected.
That's a rubber stamp.
And 2 of them were the first 2 Obamas.
Yeah,
It's
like they knew. So
they had to
something was bad.
Yeah, they had to get Rosenstein to sign off on the third one.
It's flat out a rubber stamp, and it was used in order to help one party's candidate defeat another party's candidate strictly for political reasons. This is like the perfect storm of exactly like it was worst case scenario.
Yeah,
literally. If you were going to write an Orwellian story about what could go wrong with the Patriot Act, we lived it out.
Oh no, it really happened. It happened for reals,
flat out. So. Yeah, that's. I believe that's the reason why somebody like a Dave Rubin's could come around and say, "Okay, I can embrace the fact that I can be okay with being called a Republican or a conservative," because I think it's come far enough. Some would call it to the left,
right? That
we would look at a Patriot Act and be like, oh, no, because there was that kind of a law and order authoritarian feeling of the Republican Party. Now it's like, hey, law and order as far as keeping civility, just making sure that the government isn't abusing power, that kind of stuff, or that illegal aliens are being held to account if they're jumping over the border or jumping in line on the immigration. So that's it. Other than that, it's like we shouldn't be enforcing laws that enable the government to be tyrannical.
I agree 100%. I absolutely agree.
Right.
And folks, I've said this before. We are a law and order society. If you're at the grocery store and there are 3 or 4 people in front of you, and somebody just walks up in front of all y'all, straight to the front, how do you think that's going to end?
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because there's not an actual law on the books that say that you could go to jail if you cut in front of somebody at the grocery store. But I get your point. The point is that now they may get in trouble if a scuffle breaks out and he might be charged with disturbing the peace or whatever for jumping in line. Certainly the grocery store manager would probably want to press charges.
Well, if you're at Kings Island and you do it, you'll be ejected from the park immediately.
Right, but you wouldn't be. The only way you'd be hauled off in a cop car is if additional things were done, like no, I was here. Get out of the way.
Violent, yeah.
And then a fight breaks out. Then all of a sudden you talk about assault charges and all that. But no, without these rules of society, wherever you're at, you end up with a loss of civility because people get upset.
Carrie and I would talk. Folks, I've told you this. Carrie and I would talk for hours and hours on end. And one conversation I found fascinating was that we had back and forth, and we were toying with it and having fun with it and just getting hysterical with it. Imagine, if you can, put on your imaginary thinking cap.
Oh, I like this.
If you
thought experiment time.
If you can, and erase the last 115 years or so, 120 years of the automobile.
Oh, I remember this.
Just completely erase that and just say everything else moved in a rate with technology as we have it. And today, 2018, with everything...
Let me set it up a little bit better. Imagine life, everything's just as normal, except for some weird reason, nobody really invented the car for some reason. everything's as is. We could have the internet. We could have everything that we have, houses, electricity, all this.
Carriages to get you around, whatever.
But a majority of our transportation is either horse or boat or something, maybe even trains. We could have trains, whatever. Trains, horses, boats, carriages drawn by horses. But for whatever reason, the automobile was not invented. With everything exactly the way it is today, minus the automobile.
Introduce the automobile, show the government and say, hey, check this out. You're going to love this. Mm-hmm. We got this machine that'll move at a clip at probably 120 miles an hour.
It could go 30, 40, 60 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour.
And whoever's behind the wheel has complete control over how fast they go.
Right.
And they can steer it wherever they want.
And it's going to be driving on these roads that we have now. Because, by the way, roads were around prior to the car. That was what the horses were pulling the carriages on. Right. So it's going to be driving on these roads right past pedestrians, right past horses, right past anybody just walking around.
And the government says, whoa, that's not safe. And then we propose the safety measure. I know these cars are going at a clip at each other.
Yeah.
At, say, 60 miles an hour on the freeway, 30 miles an hour on the road.
What was the other thing I said?
We'll paint the yellow line.
Yeah, just a paint.
Down the middle, and that will keep these two cars coming at each other at 60 miles. They'll never hit each other because we painted a yellow line in the middle.
This would never fly today. It would never fly. They would say, not no, but hell no. It would, in order for this to happen, they would require all roads to have a giant 2-foot or 3-foot high concrete or steel barrier between lanes.
Well, if you look at what they do out in California, they actually do that now.
Gosh.
They have concrete barriers that are 5-6 foot high that split the freeway and all kinds of precautions. But anyways, I digress. The thing is, folks, is that we have in other countries that have recently introduced vehicles, especially India and the Middle East.
Oh yeah,
get on the YouTube and see it. They are out of control. They abide by no laws. They go 100 mile an hour and they try and drift a long Mercedes SUV in the desert as it flips and rolls and guys fly out with the...
Oh, gosh. Well, what about the scenes from within the very, very congested cities where they're trying to crisscross? There's no stoplights or stop signs or lines on the road, and they're sharing the road with horse-drawn or maybe not horse, but whatever those animals are, the oxen.
Yeah, the oxen.
Whatever. And they're like, and we're talking 20 lanes with 5 different streets all coming into one intersection. 20 lanes, all of them 20 lanes, and they're all trying to go their own way. It's nuts. There's videos on YouTube that you can look at.
And I've totally forgot about this. Folks, I lived in Italy, northern part of Italy, which is less corrupt and more conservative in the northern part.
Okay.
And there were so many cars, and the roads were still made for horse and buggy. I mean, small little roads, and they're completely flat. They're not curved, and they're not banked.
Okay.
So if you're going around a really tight turn fast, you better watch yourself. You might slide off the road.
Oh, wow. And if there's water, it might be pool.
Oh, yeah, you might have a nightmare. Wow. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Well, there are literally no rules. If 2 cars are coming at each other, going down, a 2-lane road at 60, 70 mile an hour, whatever, and one other car wants to pass.
Okay.
He gets in the middle lane, rides the yellow line.
Okay.
And by law, both cars must move out of his way to make that pass.
They have to yield to him.
Up the middle.
Oh, that's
where
pretty
you
dangerous.
you create a 3rd lane just out of thin air.
Oh, yeah.
And
I might avoid doing that.
Parking?
Okay.
Parking? Yeah, wherever. Sidewalks.
In the middle of the road.
Middle of the road. Wherever. You park wherever.
Okay.
Okay, you say the light turns red and a couple of cars go left, make that final left. right? Like one car will do it on yellow, another car will do it on red, and the third car, you're looking squeamish. If you're the third car carrier,
Sounds
what
like
do you
New
do?
York City.
What do you do on the third car if that's you?
I'll stop.
Okay.
Because it's already red. I haven't even entered the intersection yet.
Okay, hold on. Well, here's the thing, though.
Okay.
If the third car goes, and the fourth car goes, and the fifth and the sixth, and they just keep training like a train, well, the other green lights won't even be able to move.
The ones that have the right of way, they can't move.
Correct, because these cars
Because they haven't given them the space.
Right.
That's genius. I should try that for real. My dad told me he used to travel to New York City back in the 70s and 80s. And he said that if you stop at a light that turns red, you will get blasted by horns.
Chicago is the same way.
Oh,
Chicago's
my God.
identical.
You have to go, or else you're going to get shamed out of there. They'll leave their hand on the horn the entire
through the red light.
Right. So he said that the rule that they pretty much follow is when it turns red, you got about 5 more cars, roughly.
Yeah, Italy, 6, 7, 8 cars. If you can keep it going. See, here, that's the thing. The audacity. If you continue the audacity from one car to the other and y'all just arrogant about it, everybody will wait for you to continue to finish up.
I don't know. What would you do if you're the guy waiting at the green light?
Oh, I got furious. I would beat my horn. I actually would nudge up and keep nudging.
Well, you gotta do that.
Yeah, you got to nudge it to intimidate somebody to stop.
That's really what it boils down to. Is you got to scare some. It's a game of chicken. This is a game of chicken.
And nothing to say negative about Italians, other than the fact that they're a little bit more reserved and not so outgoing like that. Like it's really. They'll move. They'll very graciously move off the side of the road. They'll very graciously.
Oh, so it's kind of like a polite society, except when the light turns red.
In a sense, but you got some of the young fireheads, that just it's out of control. So we're talking about law and order, folks. In America, dude, people are shocked by our law and order and by how we obey red, yellow, and green lights to a point.
Right.
Signs to
we get insulted when we see somebody break the law. It's an insult to us when the light turns red and people clear the intersection and somebody who hasn't even entered the intersection tries to just skip through there real quick and sneak through.
Yeah,
make a lot of people mad.
Oh yeah,
you'll make everybody right. Hey, that was red. Like I've actually witnessed a wreck before at an intersection where somebody just turned left on the red and somebody coming up just actually it was green and they turned left and got head on. So it was green, but you have to yield to oncoming traffic. So of course when the police came, I was like, yeah, it was green, but he just turned left right in front of that guy. So we all respect the rule of law.
There was one in an intersection I saw. A cop had a red light, but he had his lights on and he blew the light, T-boned another car. I was mad at that cop for dude. I know your lights are on,
right?
But you're going against a red light. It was actually at the five-way intersection.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, there's a couple 5-ways in Cincinnati.
The 5-way intersection with your lights on, and you blow through that at 40, 45 miles an hour.
Oh yeah. Like the ambulances will come up if it's red. They got their sirens blaring. They got the lights on, the whole 9 yards, and they'll still come all the way up. Almost completely stop, and they'll nudge out there because they're like, man, well, I know I have the red. There's going to be somebody coming with the green light. They can get T-boned, or they can T-bone somebody else.
I was told that if an ambulance causes a wreck doing that, it's the ambulance's fault.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
So the ambulance driver would be at fault, but that's why they creep and are real careful. Anyways, we're talking about law and order, and that's what America's all about, and that's what Donald Trump ran as a law and order candidate.
And in particular, it's a conservative ideal or a Republican ideal that if it's a law, it should be obeyed, and if it's violated, the person should be charged, prosecuted, or whatnot. And it seems liberals... Democrats, and not classical liberals, but Democrats,
right,
seem to kind of, and I remember this when I was a Democrat. You got this rebellious spirit. I do anyway. I did when I was a Democrat.
Yeah, and not me. I was never rebellious.
Not at all. Brian was never. You ask family members.
No, man.
Brian was the most.
That ain't legal. That ain't legit.
So, it seems like Democrats feel that rules are made up by these old people that just want to hold me down.
Right. It's the rules that hold me back.
Hold me down. And they're only there to hold me back. Now, in their defense, there are some rules that I think are actually aiding in that belief. Like, have you ever listened to people who are non-statists? Have you ever heard? They're anarchists, but they rename themselves.
No, because anarchy's a bad word.
Yeah, they don't like to be called anarchists. They call themselves non-statists. So these are people that want to live in a society where there's true self-rule, where there's no laws, no government, like absolute no government whatsoever. And they make some good points. They don't understand why, and I actually agree with them on this. They don't understand why if you approach a red light in the middle of the night and you're the only car on the road, period.
Yeah, we both know somebody like this.
You roll up to the red light and you look both ways. You could see this is a straight road. When you look down left and right, you can see for 100 yards in either
2 o'clock in the morning. 2 o'clock, nobody's out. Nobody.
And you look both ways. They don't understand, and I agree with them on this, why you couldn't just say, all right, it's safe for me to go, and just blow through the red light.
I cannot physically get myself to do that. I cannot.
I'll tell you.
Because when this person that you and I know both, you know what I'm talking about.
I do?
Yes, when this person told me that she, whatever, all time, who cares? I was dumbfounded because she seemed like the kind of person that was strict rules. But this one,
I don't know who you're talking about.
Oh yeah, you do.
I mean, I would know if you told me, but I don't know who you're talking about. So you'll have to tell me after the show.
Have a drink, comrade.
Is it,
folks? If you're seeing this for the first time,
is it a friend of a relative? Or is it a relative?
It's an in-law. So this is Lemonade, folks. Drink one for the comrade. This is at a local store. Join the party. This has been here. I know a couple of people have asked about it. This has been here ever since it was gifted to us here on Smith Radio.
And we're not going to drink the Kool-Aid.
No, this is juxtaposed what's real and what's not real.
Right.
And they've made this whole bottle has been made into
like a parody.
Get hammered and sickled. A taste worth standing in line for. And it goes on and on and on.
Right.
Here's the thing. It's not a joke anymore, man.
Well, it has never been a joke, right?
Well, yeah, but I feel like they're trying to make it a joke.
Okay.
And it makes me upset.
So you have trouble wrapping your head around breaking that particular law. I don't, although there's some intersections. Non-statist? I don't know anybody.
Won't stop for a red light at 2 o'clock in the morning if there's an open way.
I don't think that she's a non-statist. But
well, I know, but I'm just saying I couldn't believe it. I was shocked.
Yeah, because she seems a lot more like Law and Order.
Yes.
A lot more. But anyway, all right. So we're getting beyond people's. We're insulting people now. But
no,
anyway,
we're not.
No, I'm saying they want to be in on. They want to know who. But okay, so it's just a family member, but not a non-statist.
I didn't go there with it.
Well, you said it was an in-law.
Oh yeah, I did.
Anyway, so I actually don't have a problem with that, and I wish that, if it's not going to hurt anybody, I don't see the problem with that. It's a shame that if you roll up on a red light in the middle of the night and there's nobody around, it's clearly safe to go through it, that you would be pulled over and heavily fined for that if a cop actually saw you do that. That's kind of a shame. So I do actually agree with that. So there's that part of it. But that's why I believe that the right has kind of slid a little bit to the left thanks to everything that's happened over the past 20 years. I think that we're starting to realize that, we should be looking at what's the best way to solve problems. And I think with Trump coming along, we've come to that. You remember Ron Paul, not Rand Paul, Rand Paul's father, Ron Paul got up there and ran for president, and with Rudy Giuliani and all this. This was way back in was it 2008, which was with McCain. McCain ended up winning. The MSM favorite was Giuliani. They couldn't wait. They're like, America's mayor. He's going to be our president. And we're talking CNN and MSM.
Oh, they loved it.
Because they're all from New York. New Yorkers believe that the world, the entire globe revolves around them, period. So when Rudy Giuliani was running, they were excited. Ron Paul came out and he sounded at the time like, why is he running for the Republican nomination? Because he sounded kind of a little bit liberal, a little bit leftist, almost like he should be running as a Democrat. And I believe today that some of the things that he was saying back then would be much more embraced by your average, especially a Trump supporter. Maybe not your average Republican or average conservative or whatever, but definitely more of a Trump supporter. And it's because it's more of a freedom-centered, liberty-centered, laissez-faire type of environment that we've created thanks to this rallying around of Trump. This is why people like your Cassandra Fairbanks, these people that were Bernie Sanders supporters, are now very serious Trump supporters. It's because it's like a fine line, right?
Big tent party, big tent.
They felt that freedom was going to come through whatever it was that Bernie Sanders was peddling. And then they realized, we were a little bit wrong on that. And luckily, Bernie Sanders was taken out of the picture, unfortunately, through nefarious means, thanks to the DNC. You remember Donna Brazile, who has pretty much stacked the deck against Bernie Sanders, but thankfully so. And then you had your mass exodus from the Democrat Party, who these were people that were supporting Bernie Sanders, and then they come over to the Trump side, and we didn't think it was going to happen. I remember when Mike Cernovich was at the DNC interviewing man on the street, these poor Democrats. These weren't just voters. These were delegates.
Oh, right.
They were kicked out of the DNC convention because they were upset at the way that Bernie Sanders was treated. And they had their fingers in the chain link fence, and they were sad. They were kicked out. And Mike Cernovich was interviewing them and rallying these Bernie Sanders supporters, kind of coaxing them towards the Trump side. And I remember we were all like, this is not going to work. They're going to support Hillary Clinton. This is just not going to work. And I'll be damned. It worked to an extent. I'm not saying they all came over to the Trump side, but enough of them did.
Right.
And so what it boils down to is I think people who are freedom-loving constitutionalists, people that read the Constitution, read the Bill of Rights, read the Declaration of Independence, which, by the way, we got 4th of July weekend coming up.
Oh, yeah.
I'm telling you, you should I think that everybody should make it a tradition like Rush Limbaugh's father did. Rush Limbaugh's father would have a reading of the Declaration of Independence every 4th of July. Yeah. I think you should do it. And I think that people that love the philosophy of our founding, which doesn't matter right or left, I think a lot of people do, eventually come to the fact that Trump is this pragmatic leader who is going to effectively bring us back to the Constitution. And so there is like this shift from what the Republican Party has become to where Trump movement is. Right. And then you got people on the left that are coming to the right, people on the right that are coming to the left. And I'm not saying that there's this embrace of socialism on the right.
No.
But I do believe that there's an embrace of conservatism by those on the left who have come over and supported Trump.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it on YouTube. I played that video clip earlier from the gay hairdresser out of New York City, gone viral.
He doesn't seem like a hairdresser.
Yeah, he does.
Really?
Oh, I lived in L.A. for 10 years, man.
Wow.
I see that a mile
Like
away.
hairdressers are more flamboyantly like,
No,
oh my God.
He's trying to tamper.
Girlfriend, no you didn't.
If you caught him in his element.
Oh, you get a couple drinks in, he's gonna he's gonna start doing the snaps.
No, not like Damon Wayans. I'm saying,
What was that? Men on Film.
Men on Film. It's a raining men.
Oh my goodness.
Hallelujah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
we're aging ourselves.
In living color, good times. No. But anyways, we're trying to get the notion across that law and order all day, every day. Donald Trump ran as law and order president, and that's all we have ever wanted is law and order, knowing that everybody has to pay the price you break the rules.
Right.
Well, that's why the Democrats embracing the abolishment of ICE, which is law and order.
They're shooting themselves in the foot. And by the way, do we not know what ICE is doing? I mean, we all have
we do.
You don't
the
have
concentration camps down there, Gary.
Oh, that's right.
Holocaust is going on down there.
Yeah, it's Auschwitz all over again.
They are literally saying this is what ICE is doing.
It's not believable. That's the problem with the Democrat Party. They have gone into unbelievable land. Like when they try to make their arguments, and I guess maybe in the past with people not being able to look up the facts on their own, it was probably effective.
I talked to your dad about this years ago, and I made the comment. I said, "Oh yeah, like Hitler, tell a one lie after another, and just build upon that and build upon that." And your dad was like, "Hell no! You go all out, first time, one lie, make it big, make it the biggest, most unbelievable ever, because people say, oh, it's got to be true."
Right.
Nobody would ever be stupid enough to lie about that.
You know what that is? Have you ever seen one of those movies that is based on a true story? Okay.
Yeah, sure.
And when you're watching it, it's very, very, very entertaining. It's shocking. It's like, what? And what is it that you think? Isn't it true that you say, if this wasn't a true story, you couldn't make a movie about this?
What about that recent movie about that pilot turned sort of quasi-CIA running drugs from South America to America?
Was that Tom Hanks?
Yes.
Was he the pilot?
Yes.
Was it Tom Hanks?
Yeah. Phenomenal. Loved the movie. It's a great movie, but it was just so outrageous.
There's a bunch of them like that. Lord of War.
Oh, that's one I was going to bring that one up too.
And also Catch Me If You Can. That's probably the biggest one. You cannot make a movie like Catch Me If You Can and get anybody to believe it until you're like, no, this guy existed. This guy actually did all this stuff.
Yeah, I know him. I mean, I know that guy.
That was also a Tom Hanks movie.
No, but I mean, Catch Me If You Can. I mean, I know that guy.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't go that far.
No, but I didn't know I could.
Right.
That was out of control, pretending to be a doctor, a pilot.
Yeah,
everything.
Yeah, and when he a lawyer too, remember?
Right.
And he had to pass the bar, and he did, and the guy, the cop, played by Tom Hanks, wanted to know how he was able to do the bar. He was like, "How did you do that? How did you cheat and how did you get past the bar?" He said, "That was the only thing I ever did that was legit. I studied, I crammed for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I passed it." And that's actually pretty amazing. That just shows you how smart the guy is.
Right.
So, but anyway, the point you're trying to make, though, is if you're going to lie, you got to make it big, because if it's a really big lie, just like the movies based on a true story, you'd be like, this would never be believable if it weren't for the fact that it's based on a true story. Same thing with a real lie. You got to go big so that people will say, that's got to be true. You couldn't lie about something
So we've got the ICE director, the retiring director of ICE. I didn't know he's retired. Retiring ICE acting director Thomas Homan blast critics of the agency on Fox and Friends, and this has to do with
Homan.
He's blasting the Democrats. He's really just upset with how they are blasting ICE for doing all these wretched things to all these kids and children. And there also a little bit comes up about the shooting in Annapolis, but he re-steers it back to ICE, and he's got about a valid point to talk about. So here's a retiring acting CIA director.
Tom Homan is the acting director of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Today's his last day. He joins us from our nation's capital. Tom, I know you have dedicated your entire life to law enforcement. To see how quickly those police in downtown Annapolis were able to get there and save those lives, it was amazing.
By the way, they don't mention it, but the cops got there within 30 seconds of this deranged lunatic firing upon people who might have reported on him and might have been fake news.
Right.
Yeah, it's incredible. You know, it's law enforcement. They should be respected. These men and women run toward danger when everybody else is running away, and that's why I've been sickened the last couple of months about the attack on ICE officers. Also, American heroes that strap a gun to their hip every day are being vilified by members of Congress and the media. So this yesterday was an example of what law enforcement officers step on that line and put themselves at risk. So they should be respecting law enforcement across the board rather than vilifying them.
When you see these protesters, 500 arrested inside a Capitol office building on Thursday, you see celebrities saying we need to abolish ICE. What is your reaction to the threats against your agency?
They need to educate themselves. I mean, this protest yesterday, they're protesting about family separations on the border. ICE doesn't separate families on the border. That's the Border Patrol. We're a different agency. So they need to get their facts straight and inform themselves what's actually happening and understand there's two different agencies with two different missions. Border Patrol does this and ICE does this. So first thing they do is need to educate themselves. Now, I'm not throwing Border Patrol under the bus. I think they're doing what they need to do. When you prosecute an illegal alien and they're with a child, you're going to be separated. The same thing happens to U.S. citizens all across this country. When you arrest a parent and you put them in jail, many times that child has to go to Child Protective Services if there's no one there to protect them. So what these open borders people want, they want better rules for illegal alien families than we have for U.S. citizen families.
So I understand that there's more and more communities who are terminating their contract with ICE because of people like Senator Kamala Harris calling for its elimination, including Texas City, over in Sacramento, over in Virginia. What's your reaction to them terminating their lucrative contracts with ICE? These are an effort to crack down on illegals amongst us.
Well, a couple of things. First of all, I want to get back to family separations just for a moment. If the American public wants to know who to blame for family separations, the first people they need to blame is Congress. We went up to the Hill several months ago and told them what the loopholes were about the Florida Settlement Agreement. We said, you can fix this. If we can fix the Florida Settlement Agreement, we can keep the families together in a family facility till they see a judge. But they failed to fix it. They don't want to fix it, so we're doing Operation on Border, what Congress failed to do. So members of Congress are upset about family separations. They need to look in the mirror because they failed their job on fixing it. As far as these jurisdictions walking away from ICE, what they're actually doing, okay, we're not going to house aliens in this jurisdiction anymore, so when we arrest an alien in that jurisdiction, we're going to have to move them probably out of state, away from their families, away from their legal support, just because they're trying to make a political statement. They're actually hurting the immigrant community making these decisions.
Wow, that's big. Wow, that's eye-opening, very eye-opening. Because you don't think of that. You need somebody that actually does this for a living or retired, who knows the actual mechanics behind how you deal with illegal immigrants coming across the border with children.
Right.
He walks you through the process and tells you what happens, and all of a sudden you realize, and why it happens. Right. And then all of a sudden you realize, oh, this is what's actually happening. And you know, the mainstream media, they're going to intentionally describe it in a way that could be true, most likely not true, in order to get you to feel a certain way. And that's what's happening with fake stream media, and it's really annoying because, you know, their job is to get people to understand what's going on. I'm sickened by so many liberals out there who don't understand how our government works. You know, the ICE, Border Patrol, the President of the United States, executive orders, all of this stuff is under one branch of three in our government that our government's made up of, called the executive branch, and they just enforce existing laws. The laws are created by the legislature which is Congress. If there's a law that's existing, the Take Care Clause requires the federal government to enforce it to the best of their ability. They are to take care to enforce the laws that are created by Congress. If it's already there and it's a bad law, sure, the president could write an executive order saying we're not going to
which he
enforce that
did.
law.
Trump did.
He ended up doing that, but that's not the optimal way to do things in our government. The optimal way is for us to have laws that are good, that are written by the legislature. That's their job. They are totally not doing their job.
Right.
Totally.
And we're not the first one to talk about this or bring this up, but it was actually left-wing liberal lunatics that got this law into play, that pandered to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, that actually caused this. So it's left-wing loonies who actually caused this advertently, inadvertently, whatever, have now caused this to happen. And it's been going on underneath Trump. It's been underneath all the way back to Clinton, Bush, and 8 years of Barack Obama. And now all of a sudden, what? We got a year and a half into Trump, and we're going to blame Trump for this? Trump policy?
It's just a misunderstanding of the way our government works. I mean, if you don't even know how the mechanics of creating a law, enforcing a law, interpreting law, and how all the different branches, what their duties are, what they are supposed to do, and what they are not supposed to do, then you need to just shut your mouth. Because you're just speaking with feelings. It makes me feel bad. I need to lash out. I need to protest. I need to say things about the administration that I think they're lying. They're a bunch of lies. Shut up. I'm sorry to have to say that, but if you're not going to speak from a foundation of intelligence and understanding of the way our government works, you're going to sound like an emotional moron. And that's what
Mad Maxine. Mad Maxine is a complete emotional moron.
Right. Now, if you're an elected official and you're behaving this way, I'm going to call you a manipulative propagandist. Especially, look, I understand anybody could get elected to Congress, any idiot. We've seen some of the worst. We got congressmen that think that if you put too many troops on an island, it could capsize.
Oh, you didn't know? Oh, Kerry, that happens all the time. Yeah.
So I get it. You can be a total blithering idiot and get elected to Congress. But if you are a member of mainstream media making good money because you've made it your career and you were able to get that job because you've gone through many, many years of top-notch education and you're a talking head on a big one like a CNN or an MSNBC, you know better.
Right.
You know better. And since you're saying the opposite of what you must know, I'm going to call you a lying propagandist. So that's what we have over there when you're listening to CNN and reading the Washington Post.
Yeah, because it's Milo Yiannopoulos and Donald Trump's fault that the guy that shot up in Annapolis shot up the news outlet. It's Trump's fault, Milo's fault. Even though this goes back 7 years on a grudge that he had and a lawsuit that he lost against the newspaper. He claimed that the newspaper inappropriately reported about him.
So we're going to change from where we
segue?
It was a good segue, actually. It was a good segue because there's a lot of that's a more complicated subject. Now, I will have to admit, understanding the way that our government works is not a simple subject. So if you don't know how it works, welcome to the show. We're going to teach you. So, yeah, seriously, and there's people that are big fans of us that are probably, I expect you to learn a lot listening to us, right? And I'm not speaking negatively of you. I'm actually glad you're here. And you should invite more people over that don't know, because I try to make it as simple as possible. So the three branches of government and all that. Now, the Milo thing is complicated, and the only reason I'm calling it complicated is because there are people that just don't understand why Milo's totally being persecuted and punished for nothing, literally nothing, and they don't understand why. So you want to walk through this one?
Yeah, go ahead, Rhodey.
All right. So Milo has been, he's upset with mainstream media, and just like we are. And he decided one of the things that he's going to do is anytime he's asked to give a statement on anything, and he's contacted all the time to give a statement on something because he's popular.
Well, and they probably want to use that ability to maybe twist it if they can.
Sure, they'll absolutely do that. But in the meantime, it's always nice to be able to say, we contacted Milo and he said, and then they give the quote. That's always nice to be able to include that in a segment. And so he's decided to take upon himself to reply to those inquiries by saying that he cannot wait until a vigilante opens fire or declares open season on journalists. I don't know. I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what he said.
Before or after?
Oh, before. This has been going on. That is his auto response.
Oh, okay.
That's like an auto response to a mainstream fake news journalist contacting him, inquiring about a statement. Can you give a comment on this? And I wish I had the exact quote of what he was writing to them, but it's something to the effect of, I can't wait until a vigilante gunman declares open season on journalists or something like that.
He probably shouldn't have said it like that.
Oh, I wouldn't have.
Right.
Absolutely. I do not. I don't condone saying that. But here's where it churns in. It's become the source of complete fake news. USA Today and The Hill both have complete fake news headlines by saying that Milo Yiannopoulos has called for vigilantes to gun down journalists.
And now we've got it. And we've got it right here. Smoking gun. It's right here. They gunned him down.
Right. And but before those fake news headlines came out, what these journalists who received this private message, this is a message directly to the journalists. He's responding to their inquiry for a comment. And he will give a direct one-on-one private response to the journalists saying that I hope that open season happens on you guys, to that effect. Now, the journalists, maybe not all of them, but at least one, maybe a couple, have published that private message.
Ooh.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Once they publish that private message, it's now public for everybody to see. Just using simple logic, they didn't have to publish that.
No, not at all.
They didn't have to. If they were worried that something like that could inspire a vigilante gunman to open fire or declare open season on journalists, they didn't have to publish that. They could have kept that quiet. They could have...
Okay, by publishing that, it actually is a call to... They're making the call.
Right.
For the call upon a gunman on journalists.
Right. So Milo never went public with it until it became public thanks to the journalists who published it. Now, and some people will say, yeah, but Milo must have known that one of these guys is going to publish this. But he doesn't have control over those people.
Right. No, of course not.
Imagine if I texted Brian privately, one-on-one, I hope you kill yourself. That's actually a bad example because I'm telling Brian what he should do. Okay.
Right.
I could say something like, I really hope that Ted Kennedy dies of cancer or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
That's a private message, and then if he makes it public, that changes everything, and it's on Brian.
And then Ted Kennedy dies of cancer.
Right. So
and that makes you look bad.
It makes me look bad. Now, in the case of Milo, this went public. Milo then, once he found out that the statement went public, he then talked about it, and he pointed out. This is before the shooting. He pointed out, it was just a troll. I'm trolling him privately. I knew that it would trigger them, so that's why I did it. And but it's a joke. It's not serious. I don't mean it's serious. So that happened. Then after that happened, the Gazette shooting happened. The Capitol Gazette.
How did they time that?
Well, if you want to be a total conspiracy theorist, You could say,
I'm not going down that
You could
road.
go full Alex Jones.
Whoa.
You go full Alex Jones and say that this shooter was hired by the.
It was.
I'm not saying that Alex Jones said that.
Reverse engineered.
Right. So then this vigilante. But by the way, hold on a second. The mainstream media is also lying about the motivation of the shooter. They're saying, he's a Trump supporter. He had a MAGA hat that he dropped, a Make America Great Again red hat. He dropped it down and went, just opened fire like, Make America Great Again, suckers, whatever.
Because that's what we do. That's what Make America Great Again people. That's why we do that, right?
By the way, I don't want to sound like I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't even know what the politics of this guy is.
No, I have no idea.
Because it turns out this guy has had a running feud with this particular news outlet for years.
At least 5, and his instance started 7 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, they've said something like a 2012 lawsuit that ended up getting thrown out, and then he started tweeting about his feud with this publication.
And the folks that are in our private message group messaged us images, screenshots of his social media.
Right.
It was vile, absolutely disgusting.
Well,
and vile.
he was really upset at this particular news outlet that he subsequently shot up. I don't think I think the evidence shows that if you want to do what is it, Occam's razor that never attribute or the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. Usually,
the most obvious answer is usually correct.
Right. It seems to me, based on the context of his tweets and his background with this company, that it's not political or has anything to do with journalism at all. It has to do with his personal feud with this particular news outlet.
Wait, it might be a little political because from what I was gathering, he claimed that they wrote fake news about him.
Okay, so if it was about him personally, I would say it was political if they wrote fake news about a politician that he supports, and he was so upset that he went, or maybe they said something ideologically biased that he doesn't agree with, and he's like, you know what? Whatever.
The hell with all y'all.
Yeah, and that I would say, this is totally politically driven. But they're writing something that he didn't agree with about him personally?
Yeah, it was about a case that he was involved in back long time ago. He was involved in a case, whether it was domestic dispute or some kind of altercation.
Kat in Arizona is telling us that the journalist who got fired, or he got fired for making up a story, is what they claim that he got fired for. So this is workplace violence, is what this is. It's funny when an actual real shooting happens by a Democrat, a crazed Democrat. They call it workplace. Or no, I'm sorry, a Muslim.
Right.
When a Muslim extremist uses his religion to do a terrorist attack and mass kill a lot of infidels, it was said that that's workplace violence. But in this particular case, this sounds like actual workplace violence. Now, you're probably saying, well, yeah, but that was 5 years ago. Sounds like he's been stewing this whole time.
Oh, you don't get to this point in your life without stewing 24/7.
Right. So all that being said, The Hill and USA Today both had almost identical headlines.
Of course.
And their headline was that Milo is in trouble for calling for vigilantes to gun down journalists. Now, my initial gut reaction was, whoa, that's fake news. Without even looking anything up, I'm just like, that's not what happened. A private message to an individual that you hope that some vigilantes start shooting up journalists,
right,
is not a call for vigilantes to shoot up journalists. That's, if you hope for it, you're not calling for it. But why? Turns out, go ahead and do it yourself, folks. Get out the old Google and type in define call for. Turns out, calling for something requires you to make it public.
Right, and Milo didn't make it public.
Right. He didn't make it public. In fact, he specifically did one-on-one private messages. And also, one could argue, and this might be a stretch, that you're not telling a vigilante to gun down journalists simply by hoping for it. But if you did make that public, one could make the argument that, well, when you publicly hope for a vigilante to do it, you're pretty much indirectly saying, hey,
well, like
Brian, I know you got a shotgun and an AR-15. Why don't you go? I'm just saying. I'm just hoping.
Well, like Randolph Hearst.
William Randolph Hearst says, you know what? Somebody should put a bullet in the brain of McKinley.
And lo and behold,
somebody did it. He did. That's pretty much calling for it.
That's calling for it.
That's absolutely calling for it. So I'm calling The Hill, USA Today, and anybody else who says that Milo Yiannopoulos called for a vigilante to shoot up journalists and that it happened because of that, that's all completely fake news.
Yeah, fake.
100% fake news. And it's a little bit complicated and nuanced, but I'm using the English language. Journalists who write these stories and write the headlines, they know a lot more about the English language than I do. They should know better. They should know that when they claim that Milo Yiannopoulos called for a vigilante to shoot up journalists, that they are actually making a false statement in the context of them being a journalist is fake news.
Agreed 100%.
It's as simple as that. And so now you know the whole story. And I think Milo is a brilliant orator. I think that he makes the case. I think he's better than Ben Shapiro at just banging out really good facts at the top of his head and be able to win debates. I honestly think he's better. But, he does these tactics that really shoot himself in the foot. Now his monetization has been taken from him. And it's frustrating to watch because I want him to have the power to use his skills to further the cause, and it just seems like you don't have to do.
You don't have to go down that road, right?
Yeah,
right.
Don't go down that road.
So the shooter used a shotgun.
Mm-hmm. Oh, by the way, Kat just corrected me. The journalist that got fired for making up a story was the journalist who said that the MAGA hat was dropped.
Because
that was total fake news.
Yeah. Okay. So a friend, a guy that I follow on YouTube, subscribe to on YouTube, put together this really neat little 2-minute montage. It goes over Joe Biden telling women what to and what not to do to protect themselves. And for those of you who are audio only, I'll talk a little bit through the parts that are just audio only. But
and if you're video, Brian doesn't think you're an idiot.
No. I'm doing it for audio.
Right.
So here's Joe Biden putting his foot in his mouth once again.
Oh, of course.
He's asking if a ban goes.
Hold on. That's a man. That's a soy boy man interviewing Joe Biden on CBS News.
That's worse than Brian Stelter.
Yes. So that is too much.
He had see the soy shooting out of his mouth.
That's what happens when you have double soy lattes in the morning.
She's asking if a ban goes into effect on certain kinds of weapons and high-capacity magazines.
And what's her name?
Kate.
Kate, if you want to protect yourself, get a double-barrel shotgun, have the shells, a 12-gauge shotgun, and I promise you, as I told my wife, we live in an area that's wooded and somewhat secluded. I said, Jill, if there's ever a problem, just walk out on the balcony here or walk out, put that double-barrel shotgun and fire 2 blasts.
Sorry, folks. Sorry about that.
There goes your ears.
Okay, so what's happening now is a montage of girls shooting shotguns and the shotgun blasting them, kicking
it's
back.
A fail.
Yeah, it's a fail. It kicks back out of their hands into their head. She dropped it.
They're dropping them. Yeah, they're firing it, and the recoil is causing them to
knocked her down. She dropped the shotgun.
She almost.
You'll be completely fine.
Ooh, dropped the shotgun. Ooh.
Oh, she broke a shoulder.
Broke a shoulder.
What's wrong, Autumn? Pull the trigger.
Oh, Lord, that's a...
What the heck?
She's laying on the ground now. She drops.
She didn't drop it, but she, yeah.
I promise you, who's ever coming in is not going to. You don't need an AR-15. It's harder to aim. It's harder
No, it's
to
not.
use.
Hold on. Okay, that's a little woman rapidly controlled firing an AR-15.
She looks
And
really
in
small,
fact,
yeah.
you don't need 30 rounds to protect yourself. Buy a shotgun. Buy a shotgun.
That's ridiculous.
That's the guy's pants came off while shooting the failed.
Oh, boy.
Anyways.
Oh, boy. I'll tell you what. That is so ignorant. I mean, I actually shot shotguns, tactical shotguns.
Right.
That's for you, Vessi.
Tactical shotgun. Tactical shotgun.
Well, it was military issue. We had to fire at a firing range and be trained on the shotgun. And so, yeah, I mean, we shot the shotgun. We shot the M16, which is the same thing as the AR-15, essentially. And I wouldn't want the shotgun in any circumstance where I could have an AR-15 in its place because the control's a lot better. The recoil is almost non-existent.
Oh, yeah, you saw that woman looked like she probably weighed 125 pounds.
Yeah, the recoil's very minimal because the actual weight of the round is much, much smaller. And plus, there's a giant spring in the buttstock that takes the impact of the firing, and the bolt slides back and it depresses the spring, and so you end up with very, very soft recoil compared to a shotgun. The shotgun, the bolt doesn't go back to reload it; you have to cock it.
Right.
And that with the M16 or AR-15, it reloads itself, and that's spring loaded. So you're taking the entire impact of the shot on the shotgun without a spring. So, yeah, it's just way easier to control, and Biden's an idiot.
Yes, no. So when he decides to run, because apparently this is all they've got. They've got Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden.
And he's older than you think. Like, he seems like he's aging well, I would say. But, everybody criticized both Clinton and Trump about their age and how old they're going to be if they do an 8-year term. Biden is right up there. I actually mistakenly thought he was younger than he was because he's aging pretty well.
Biden is 75.
He's 75 now. If he runs in 2020, 77. I mean, we're getting into SCOTUS territory here.
Okay, so Hillary is 1 year younger than a woman that I know. So I'll remember her. She's 70. Hillary's 70.
Mm-hmm.
So 70 running for president.
Yeah, but
again,
she's 70 going on 90, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
if you're running for president at 72 years old, like Donald Trump, who went complete Rambo. I mean, doing
that's a good way to that's a very good way to describe it.
He was doing 5 shows in 5 states a day.
I don't even know. Like when he was doing 3 a day every day, I was like, wow, I can't even believe that's even possible.
And they were reporting that he was eating at Mickey D's, and I was getting upset about that.
I mean, they were I was exclusive. I was driving the motorcade.
Right, but I was upset about that. I wanted him to eat healthier.
Well, apparently they sometimes go to Mickey D's and sometimes go to KFC, but they also sometimes order Domino's.
Oh, Domino's is awful.
Right, and the guy that was in the vehicle with us, and you've heard me say it before, but because I'm talking about this, I won't say it now, but he was clearly monitoring his weight. Trump's weight.
Oh, okay.
Because he was talking about how he notices he's gained a little bit recently, and this was about 20 days before the election.
Oh, so you're looking
really
right
close.
there towards the end.
It was really getting close. Maybe 25. It was. I remember it was very shortly after the coup attempt.
Right.
And so anyway, and this was like a rebound. The big one in Cincinnati was a rebound, big rebound. But he was talking about the gaining of the weight and all that kind of stuff. And somebody else that I discussed this with talked about how it's actually preferable to get fast food because they don't know you're coming. They don't know.
You can't poison.
It's very difficult to poison or tamper with the food when some guy shows up and says, "Yeah, I'll take 20 Big Macs, supersize that." And you 20 orders. They put it all together real quick, and you're out the door. They have no idea that they just made food for the future president. It's like that. When you get something that's like, hey, let's sit down and we'll vet everybody in the kitchen and we'll get served our meal. Nah, dude, that's too
much.
There's just too much.
Okay, so here's what we've got going on right now, folks. We've got Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden. You got Maxine Waters. You got Nancy Pelosi. You don't have anybody else. Don't think Kamala Harris is going to come out of California and run a successful campaign. She's not going to. Keith Ellison,
leftist,
right? Keith Ellison, hardcore Muslim leftist,
and a racist.
He's not going to be able to run a good campaign. There was a campaign advisor for the Democrats. We reported on this a couple of weeks ago. He was talking with a reporter at townhall.com and telling him, we got effing, he used the word F, we got effing nobody. And he's livid that Barack Obama has done zero for the campaign or for the DNC since leaving the White House. Bill Clinton is so toxic. You won't see him anywhere anymore. It's over with, especially after that interview where he defended himself.
That was
He
bad.
defended himself for raping Monica and all those other women.
Did you apologize to her? I have apologized to everybody
in America.
Everybody in America. Well, have you apologized to Monica? Well, not publicly. I haven't talked to her. But I've apologized to everybody.
Why would I apologize to her? She still stops by.
Whoa, hey.
Don't even think for one split second that might not even be true. Well, that's only when Katy Perry's not around.
Yeah. What? Katy Perry? I don't know about Katy Perry. What'd she do?
She got a daddy complex.
Oh, I can see that.
She liked
She actually resembles Monica Lewinsky a little bit.
Yeah,
just a little bit,
but thinner, and she likes the Bill Clinton age.
Okay. Oh, she likes that.
Kind of creep.
Okay.
Anywho, that's just a little bit of chum in the water for the Sharks. Get all fired up.
All right.
So we're talking about who's the up and coming. So now we've got a 28-year-old socialist bartender, female, who just outed a 10-term.
How do you have 10 terms? That won't make no sense.
10-term, 20-year Democrat congressman who was set to take over as Speaker of the House and replace Nancy Pelosi. He didn't see it coming, raised millions at the very last minute. It's like he wasn't looking in the rearview mirror. He's going down the freeway at 65 doing a speed limit. Hey, I'm clear sailing. There ain't nobody on the road.
In reverse. He wasn't looking. He was looking forward while driving backwards.
Correct.
60. At 60.
Like 60, right. And so all of a sudden, it's like the Bugs Bunny episode, Bugs Bunny and the Hare. All of a sudden, Bugs Bunny's got this one, and lo and behold, he didn't realize that the tortoise had the jet rocket packs.
Oh, that's how the tortoise won.
Yeah.
He got a rocket pack.
And he got them cheap. And, well, the spoiler alert, at the very end, there were multiple tortoises who looked alike, who all had rocket packs.
They got their friends involved.
So lo and behold, this young girl is getting momentum, only raised $300,000, grassroots, going all out, getting momentum. And by the time she catches up to him, she's doing 70 as he's doing 65. So she passes him at 5 miles an hour, and he tries to tromp on the gas by dumping more and more money in there. And it was too late.
Stalled it out.
Wow.
Wow.
It's too late. Didn't have no more left.
He's running too rich. literally and figuratively and scientifically.
Yes, just a little bit. So he started falling apart. So now you got this hard left vote in Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
Okay.
And this by Bret Behr report. Here's where he talks about the situation and what's going on with the Democrat Party. And if you don't think the Democrat Party has a civil war going on amongst themselves, they absolutely do, because this also blindsided Nancy Pelosi.
You know, it's funny, real quick before we get to the video, you know, it's like they keep dividing and going further and further to the left. That would be this way for you guys. Because I remember when you had your, remember Webb? He was a Democrat, ran for president. And he was like that, the old school JFK style, like he was what the Democrats were back in the old school day, where it was like they were actually solving problems. They seemed to be a lot more moderate, and they pushed him out. So there's a division, pushed them out. Now here we are, fast forward, and now you got your progressive socialist leftist being left behind by the full-blown Marxist communists, basically.
Yeah, I don't even get, like, this girl, when I say girl,
she's very young for somebody to be winning Congress. She only won the primary so far.
Right, but wait to see her reaction. And this goes along something I've said all along, Carrie. Okay, this has to do with Hollywood.
Okay, but she's on the East Coast, though.
Yeah, but it has to do with people winning awards.
Okay,
that actually didn't put, didn't actually do what they had to do. Like
they didn't put the work in. They didn't earn it.
Yeah, when she comes up on stage, you like me. You really like me.
She went Sally Field.
No. But my whole point is that when actors and actresses do that as an emotional speech, when winning, it's similar to a guy I knew that got hired on and told all of us, when I got hired on here, I wept. I cried. I'm like, I'll never need another job. I could live off 36 hours a week with what they're paying me, and just on and on. And like, he eventually got fired, but it's because he didn't deserve it.
And he was showing that.
Yes, the reaction on this girl's face, and I call her a girl because she looks like a very young 20-year-old. When she found out that she won, the shock in her face was like, oh, man.
She knew that she wasn't going to win because she didn't deserve to win.
Right.
Okay.
And so she ousts a 10-term, 20-year congressman. So here's Bret Behr reporting on it. Bret Behr, take it away, my friend.
On top of the double whammy from the U.S. Supreme Court today, Democrats are also licking their wounds over an unexpected primary loss. House Democratic Caucus Chairman Joe Crowley of New York was upset by a political neophyte and self-described socialist. Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry looks at what this says potentially about a divided Democratic Party.
An earthquake for Democrats as a powerful congressman potentially in line to replace Nancy Pelosi as party leader, Joe Crowley, lost his primary to a newcomer. 28-year-old.
Okay, that is her looking like she's at a bar. She's screaming at the top of her mouth is covered up with her hand.
She's at a sports bar drinking Frosty Steins.
Well, that's where she works. She's a night.
Shut up.
She works at a bartender.
She's at her place of employment,
and she just ousted this. Well, she couldn't afford to do anything else.
Well, she really is a neophyte.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Okay. So explain neophyte.
It's a person who is new to a subject, skill, or belief. So she's new at this.
Oh, so new. She probably said to herself, "You know what? I got this." And then realized, oh, Lord, I really could. Oh, I just won it. Like she won the lottery. It's like Barack Obama winning the White House. For a month, he was walking around the White House telling everybody how I got this. I was born for this.
Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a disciple of Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders.
Oh, God.
A disciple?
Because it's their religion.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Who says she wants Medicare for all, so-called free tuition for college students, and wants to abolish ICE, which protects the nation's borders.
Imagine there's no borders.
She's singing the
John Lennon.
Imagine. In JFK, here is the party of radical socialism.
Pelosi was in a race of her own today to insist Crowley's turf in Queens, New York is so liberal, it does not mean bigger trouble nationally.
They made a choice in one district. So let's not get yourself carried away.
Except Pelosi said the opposite in 2014 when Republican Majority Leader Eric Cantor lost his primary.
The Republican Party going even further to the right.
That too. The Eric Cantor thing, that's what this really reminds me of, because Eric Cantor was slated to be the party leader, and they were talking about him being Speaker of the House and all this kind of stuff. It was a huge upset, and I remember being happy about it. And as a matter of fact, Timothy Schwartz talks about the kids, like 2 young kids who engineered the ousting of Eric Cantor. Yeah,
really?
And they wrote a book about it. And I'm sorry I don't have the name of the book right off the top of my head, but they wrote a book about the ousting of Eric Cantor. And as a Tea Party person, I was thrilled about it because this was an establishment guy that needed to go. And so it's interesting because there's a lot of people in the Democrat Party who are excited about what just happened here. They're not sad.
They're not sad that the disciple of Bernie Sanders.
No, they're like, yes, we're finally making a difference in the Democrat Party. This is our party. This is our party.
It is your Democrat Party has absolutely been hijacked 100%
by Marxists.
Yeah.
The question for Pelosi now is whether the blue wave she's hyping for a November takeover of the House is starting to boomerang as Republicans get fired up by the tilt to the left, which includes Democrat Maxine Waters calling for more protests and verbal attacks targeting aides to President Trump.
There was a time in America's history where you could be denied service in a restaurant based on the color of your skin. Now, apparently, it's the color of your voter registration card.
So, Mr. Chairman, if you want to talk about civility, you start with the President of the United States.
In New York, Ocasio-Cortez had a much more uplifting message about a working mom with limited money. And a young Latina taking out a party boss thrilled Bernie Sanders.
We're seeing a whole...
Hold on. Whoo! You nailed that one, Carrie. This is the first time you're seeing this, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
Bernie Sanders thrilled.
Well, yeah, it's his disciple.
To take out a party boss.
You know what I'm going to do for next week? I'm going to contact Cassandra Fairbanks.
Okay.
And the reason why is because she tells everybody that she was a Bernie Sanders supporter that got upset and then became a Trump supporter, and she's one of many. She represents. I want her to write an article, and I'm going to reach out to her and see if she'll do this. I want her to write an article that explains what she feels about this. If she was a Bernie Sanders supporter and she was upset at the Democrat Party for treating Bernie the way he was treated,
right?
Is she excited about this? And is this something that could steer her back to the Democrat Party? And if not, why? Why would you say, you know what, I'm done with that? Because it very well may be that Cassandra...
Did she not know who Bernie Sanders was?
Well, she was a supporter, and she wanted him to win the nomination. She was a Democrat. She was a liberal or whatever. And since then... Is
she now a conservative?
She's a big Trump supporter. Big Trump supporter.
I guess that's all that matters.
Really, oh yeah, she's a really big Trump supporter. She's all in on Trump, but I would love to hear what she feels about this.
Her turning.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people who were Bernie Sanders supporters, got disenfranchised with the way he was treated, and became and embraced everything that Trump stands for. Clearly, that would mean that there's a change of ideology. Because how do you go from Marxism to pure free constitutionalism is what it really boils down to. Is that's really the foundation of the Trump movement, is the embrace of the Constitution, really. And so, does she look back and say, "Wow, I was so wrong, which is good because that would keep her from embracing this and going back to the Democrat Party? Or is she like, wow, now that my man Bernie Sanders, his ideology is making a comeback and taking over the Democrat Party, maybe I'll become a Democrat now. So I would love to hear her reaction to this and explain to her, to everybody, her fans, and to everybody who's come over from the Bernie Sanders camp to become a Trump supporter as to why this is not going to get them to go back. I would love to hear that. So anyway.
Party boss thrilled Bernie Sanders.
We're seeing a whole lot of young people getting involved in our revolution organization.
Getting involved in our revolution organization.
Okay.
Getting involved in grassroots campaign.
That energy is a good sign for Democrats in safe liberal seats. But it could get more complicated in moderate House districts and red Senate seats, as the GOP base, already amped up by the retirement of Justice Anthony Kennedy, will get frequent reminders about socialist rising.
It was a stunning development. The energy in the Democratic Party is self-avowed socialist, open borders.
Another boost for the GOP base.
That was Mitch McConnell, beside himself.
May come from the fact that Crowley's ouster makes it more likely that Pelosi will stay on as either Speaker or Minority Leader, so she'll remain front and center in Republican attack ads this fall. Brett?
And thank you.
That's good. That's really good for the Republican Party and the Trump movement to have Nancy Pelosi being
staying
the face
on
of the Democrat Party.
Yeah, got to stay on. Staying on. Yeah, so you've got the whole party moving socialist. You've got you heard Bernie Sanders and his revolution. Make no bones about it. That's all they want. They want complete control and utter power over everything and everybody. They want to go down this road. The hardcore leftists.
Well, we know. Look, one of our teaching points from day one on Smith Radio was to explain the difference between socialism and communism. You talk about going down this road. Socialism is the vehicle or the road or both, and the destination is communism. So when you're doing progressives is about progress. So the question you have to be asking,
where are you progressing to?
Yeah, what do you mean progress? Where are we going? Where are we going? And they don't want you to know.
Kerry, we're progressing forward.
Yeah, they try to trick you into thinking that we're
getting better.
We're evolving into a more civilized, complex,
you don't
and
understand.
Advanced society.
You don't understand, Kerry. We were sick and broken, and we're progressing to
We were poor.
Yeah, we're progressing to a more healed and united People's Republic of America.
No, it's the Union of Soviet Socialist America, USSA.
Oh, USSA,
yes.
United.
No, Union of Soviet Socialist America.
Oh, wow. Oh, speaking about that, Donald Trump tweeted out, the Democrats are making a strong push to abolish ICE, one of the smartest, toughest, and most spirited law enforcement groups of men and women that I have ever seen. I have watched ICE liberate towns from the grasp of MS-13 and clean out the toughest of situations. They're great.
They're great.
So CBP, which is Border Patrol, tweeted this out. This week, USBP, Border Patrol, and agents, CBP, Border Patrol, officers arrested MS-13 and 18th Street gang members, child molesters, smugglers. Every day, they protect our communities by preventing dangerous people from entering the U.S. Folks, the embracing Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, embracing the abolishment of ICE is pure and utter insanity. She's 28 years old. 30, 40-year-old voters that are common, just level-headed individuals, are going to see this and say, you might have won the party's nomination, but you ain't got my vote.
Yeah, and here's the thing about open borders. And you're not a country without borders, and that's really important. And you need to understand, like, the philosophy of John Locke to understand why that's the case. It seems like some platitude that people are supposed to just accept. And what it boils down to is, what is a country and why do you need it? Why do you need a government? Why do you need to have a country? What's the point? Or a state, as people would say. It's an agreement amongst a group of people or a culture of common defense. Really, is what it boils down to. And what are you defending? Obviously, it's your way of life, your culture, and the possessions, property, and whatnot. The production, just everything that you've produced in your society, and it needs to be protected. And that's the point of government. That's the main point: is a common socialized protection is what it really is, right? And as soon as you say, well, we just need to eliminate borders, then you have to question what's the point of having government. So this is all like John Locke type philosophy. So that being said, if you can understand, and I really glossed over that, so you definitely need to look into more detail into that so that you can educate yourself on why it's important that borders are important to countries or states. It's really important. After that, it's like, okay, could we allow anybody in? Sure, we need borders, and we need to protect ourselves from enemies, and that's the point of having a border. It's the point of having a military, border patrol, and all this kind of stuff. But can we let anybody in who wants to be here? Obviously, if it's an enemy, we need to go after those people and prosecute them if they actually do action against the country. Back in the day, we used to call that treason. Doesn't seem like that's even on the table for anybody ever anymore.
Not anymore, no.
But here's the problem with just having open borders. In a pure free market capitalist society where you have survival of the fittest, I think that a lot of people call it economic Darwinism.
Okay.
Open borders would be okay because, and let's assume that we're not worried about enemies coming over like a Trojan horse to destroy America. Let's just say people coming over to want to better their lives. In pure free market capitalism, I normally wouldn't have a problem with that because these people would not be able to affect policy because they would not be allowed to vote until they've been a resident for so long that they could become eligible for citizenship.
Right.
And this was the original idea of our founders, that anybody could come over. You come over to Ellis Island, you wait until you've been cleared of diseases and you're not going to infect the population with some deadly disease where we have a black plague or whatever. And once you're cleared, you get a clean bill of health, you leave Ellis Island and you're in America, you're an immigrant, and you whether or not you assimilate is up to you. I mean, and they normally did. And that's how it was because you couldn't affect policy until you became a citizen, which was years later. And that time limit was understood to be the time that you would eventually assimilate, right? Here's where the whole thing comes apart. It comes apart when you start to turn this free market society into a socialist country, because now you're offering all kinds of freebies to people just for being there. Now you cannot have open borders because people are going to come just for the freebies. They're not coming because they want to participate in freedom and liberty. Maybe they are. Maybe some of them are. Maybe most of them are. But by offering all this free stuff, could be welfare, could be education. We didn't have free education back when our country was founded. Now we have compulsory public education, which is expensive. Taxpayers have to pay a lot of money to make this happen. We have Social Security, like all these social programs, and now we're talking about Obamacare, free tuition for college, free Medicare. You
know what? When you give out stuff like that for free, people don't care about it. People will start. If you give them free health care, you know what they do? Because I know what happens. These people out in California, they got Medi-Cal, which is California Medical, and Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it be. They call the ambulance to come get them to go because they have a cold.
They have a cough.
Yes. They use the ambulance as
My nose is sniffly.
Right, they use the ambulance as a taxi cab.
Wow.
It's out of control. No,
I
nothing,
get it.
Nothing free is worth having.
Yeah. I found out through the VA that if you show up at the emergency room, they will come to make sure that you have a legitimate emergency. Because they'll pay for everything. When I showed up, if you guys remember last year, almost a year ago now, I had to show up at the emergency room for an issue, And the VA on day 2 showed up and was like, "Yeah, I just wanted to check in on you. So what's going on?" And I told them what happened. They were like, asked me a couple questions, and then they left. If I was just there with a snot nose, they were not going to pay for that. Absolutely not. And so the point is that open borders obviously is the wrong term for it because, like I said, point of government, common defense, you have to have a border of some sort. We certainly need a strong border between us and Mexico. And not because of the immigration, but because we're not friendly with them. No. We never have been.
And you've got a lot of the drug cartel down there that's out of control. Right. And if we could do something to just deter pregnant women and children, deter women and children from attempting the trek over the Rio Grande through the desert, surviving multiple rapes, multiple vicious attacks by other coyotes and other Mexicans that are attempting to take advantage of them. Take advantage of them. If we can deter and they find out, women and children find out, oh man, a big giant wall. I can't get it.
Yeah, the wall is absolutely, guys. I tweeted this out this week. I can't get over
that
because here's what the problem is. We have people that cross the border once they step foot on U.S. soil. They have the right to due process. Apparently, they can't just be said, "Hey, I just saw you cross the border, and we checked you out, and you don't have ID. You're not a U.S. citizen. You have no way to prove that you are. You're not a U.S. citizen. You're here illegally. Turn around and get out."
No. I want asylum. My father beats me up, and my mother is drunk.
Well, that's fine. But even if they don't say that, even if they say, you know what, I had no problems in my home country, no problems whatsoever. But guess what? I want to be here.
But you can't.
Well,
it don't work. It don't work like that.
Here's the problem. Now they have due process. They're on soil. I can't take their shoulders, turn them around, and shove them across the border. Can't do it.
That's why we need the wall.
That's why we need the wall. It is not legally permitted for the Border Patrol to say, no. Back out.
Go back the way.
I just saw you cross.
Nope.
Get back.
Yep.
No, they have to bring them in. They have to process them. They have to put them in jail. They have to separate the families after a certain amount of days. This is all by law. They have no choice unless they ignore a law. So, and by the way, some people are saying, it's not law. This is all Trump's fault. This is all his doing. This is his policy. Guys, you have to ignore one or the other law. Either you ignore the fact that they are here illegally and just let them go about their way in America. That's ignoring a law. You don't separate families when you do that. You can ignore that law.
Right.
Or you can ignore the law that says that you can't have them together when you prosecute the parents. You're ignoring one law or the other. Because if you adhere to both laws, number one, you don't let them go. And number two, you separate the families.
Right.
So why are you insisting that we have a lawless president? Why are you insisting it? No. It's as simple as that. And if you want the law to be changed, you don't scream for Trump to write an executive order. You call up your congressman and you say, what the hell? You guys write the law. You guys, maybe not you personally, but our representatives wrote these laws that I don't agree with. Get out there and change it. Don't be screaming for our president to start writing up executive orders. That's not how our government works.
Well, it worked under Obama like that, and nobody liked it. But now they want Trump to act like that now. No, it don't work like that. It wasn't good when Obama did it.
It's a BS excuse to try to blame Trump for what looks like social injustice.
Right. So check this out. At education, the number 4 libs.
Education for libs. Okay.
And the number 4 libs.
Is that on Twitter?
On Twitter.
Okay, gotcha.
He tweeted out, did you know 2.7 million children in America have a parent in prison? I didn't know that.
That's all.
America.
All people in America.
Yeah, 2.7 million kids have a parent in prison.
Okay.
400,000 kids are in foster care. 756,000 kids are separated from their military parents, not knowing if they'll ever see them again. But the media is focused on 2,000 kids who were temporarily separated, from illegal immigrants.
Yeah, this
gets some perspective here.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great sentence there. Wow. It just goes to show you, guys, what Brian's trying to say is Democrats don't care about Americans.
Nope.
Period.
Nope.
What about the children? Yeah, okay, that's fine, but you're ignoring American children. Way more of them.
Way more.
Way more. Yeah, but you shouldn't be separate. Okay, what about military? What about all the prisoners that are that have American children?
Right, and if you're a Black American or if you know anybody that's Black American, I'm going to tell you something right now, and this might sting a little bit, but
just do it quick. Just rip it off quick.
The easiest child, because we have a couple, a friend of ours, who have adopted a child. They said the easiest and cheapest through their lawyer. The easiest and cheapest child to adopt in America is a black kid. If you want a white boy, you're going to pay a lot of money to adopt a white boy or girl. You're going to pay a lot of money. If you want to go an inexpensive route, for some, I don't know why the numbers are this way. I got nothing to do with it. But her lawyers said, okay, for a black child, it's going to cost $10,000, $15,000, whatever, to do the process to adopt a black child. If you want to adopt a white child, it's going to be double that, $30,000, $35,000, $40,000.
Is it like the market? Is there like more black children?
Yeah, the supplies.
Available?
Yeah, the supplies. Yeah, there's a lot more black children on the market. And when I say on the market, I mean in foster care who desperately need.
Well, I call it market because it's something you have to pay all these fees to have this process being done. And by the way, I think a big problem with adoption in America is how necessarily difficult it is.
When I was a youth, 3 days old, matter of fact, my mother's local family doctor called her up and said, "I know you got a baby girl, just adopted a girl. It's 8 months later. Would you like, or 7 months later, would you like to adopt a baby boy?" And she said, "A girl and a boy? Yeah, I'll take a boy. Of course I will." And he's like, "Okay, get ready. 3 weeks out, he's going to be born." So she had 3 weeks to get ready for a baby. She went to the lawyer's office. The lawyer's office had the baby from the hospital. The lawyer gave the baby to my mom. She signed the papers, check in hand. The contract was my parents who raised me, paid the hospital bill, paid the lawyer, done. It seemed a lot simpler back then, folks.
Yeah, well, they need to balance the need for protecting the children's safety from people that probably wouldn't be very good parents for whatever reason.
Right.
With the fact that, maybe it's not so great to spend your entire 18 years of your childhood in a government facility.
Right. No.
Right. So they need to find that balance because you got to take risks.
Right.
You got to take risks in life.
And real quick, we're running out of time, but just real fast, CBS polls. These are CBS liberal polls. CBS poll. 51% of America believes a border wall is a good idea.
Wow. That's big.
CBS poll. Most Americans want illegal families either deported or detained. And then this written by Breitbart News, America's Mexican border crisis, a staged, managed creation, which we know that and we've talked about that. But I want to jump into real quick because we're running out of time. I want to jump into this. Is so critically important. Didn't want to miss this whatsoever. On Monday, I did a scope on Monday, and here's what I talked about. Donald Trump's White House advisor, his name's Leo. Fox News Sunday. This is last week when we were doing our show last week. Leonardo Leo, who assists President Trump and the White House counsel Don McGahn in the historic task of filling a record number of judicial vacancies. Leo predicts that President Trump will have at least 2 more opportunities to appoint originalists to the Supreme Court, which could define his presidency a lasting legacy for the nation. That was Monday, and we've been reporting this for over a year and a half now. Donald Trump has, at record pace, replacing judicial appointments across the country, record pace, which is phenomenal. So now this article came out, and it's just an opinion piece, and the guy who works for Trump says, yeah, Trump's full, 2 terms, 8 years. He's going to get probably two more appointees. And then filmmaker David Lynch believes Trump could be the greatest president in history. Lynch, whose credit includes Twin Peaks, Mulholland Drive, and The Elephant Man, told The Guardian that Trump's political rise has shown how flawed this system really is. He could go down as one of the greatest presidents in history because he has disrupted the thing so much. No one is able to counter this guy in an intelligent way. Our so-called leaders can't take the country forward, can't get anything done. Like children they are. Trump has shown all of this. I'm not really a political person, but I really like the freedom to do whatever I want.
So he recognizes the facts here and what's really going on. That's a really powerful statement.
Okay, that's Monday. This is still last Monday. And then all of a sudden we got news. North Korea's anti-U.S. souvenirs, posters, and propaganda reportedly disappear across the nation of North Korea.
Okay.
Overnight, just taken down.
That sounds like good news, doesn't it?
Yeah, so this fake news that has been propagated out, that somebody came to me that they saw on Facebook, that Kim Jong-un is going to pull a fast one. He's still got nukes.
They've been reporting this morning that Kim Jong-un has ramped up production of nuclear materials. And when they questioned John Bolton, he basically said, well, I'll just speak generally. I'm not going to get into specifics, especially with regards to intelligence. But all I can say is that we haven't gotten to the point yet where we can prove that they're doing otherwise. So literally, they're just making stuff up, knowing that John Bolton and others in the administration don't really have the ability to tell them that they're wrong.
Since we can't say for sure, we got to assume.
We can't prove that you're dead wrong without divulging secrets that we don't want to divulge to you.
We got to assume that it's anyway. So I'm not buying it. I'm still on the side of Trump. Trump's got Kim in his pocket. I honestly believe that Kim's got a man crush on Trump. He's got a man crush on Dennis Rodman. Carrie and I both believe
I think we're right
that Kim wants a new world.
Yeah, if he's going to be able to be the leader of it, why not make it awesome?
Right. So we hear that, and then there are different articles coming out. Is there a light at the end of the deep state cover-up that's possible? Jim Jordan,
our guy from Ohio,
confirms that, yes, when the speaker becomes open, I will go after the Speaker of the House position.
Awesome.
Really excited about that. And then all of a sudden we had, Wednesday morning. I was in Vegas. Wednesday morning, Tuesday maybe. The ruling 5-4 Muslim ban held up. Sorry, Supreme Court Justice 5-4 says the travel ban. I call it the Muslim ban because I get all triggered by it.
It's definitely a triggering phrase.
But the travel ban is upheld, which has always been legit. So Trump campaign, Trump administration got the 3.0. This is the third chime. Got the wording just right. 5-4. That went down. Judge Napolitano said the SCOTUS upholding travel ban, ringing, uncompromising win for Trump. So we got winning. Big time winning. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you wouldn't believe it, Justice Kennedy to retire. Justice Kennedy. Well, I'm just telling you that right now, folks. All the things that are going on.
This is exciting.
We couldn't have predicted.
Would you call this Trump's best week ever?
Has to be.
Yeah, by far. And we've had several best week ever, but he can't predict this. He can't force a SCOTUS to retire. But when it happens, it's like, well, isn't this awesome?
There was another SCOTUS decision that came down. The
baking cake, the cake baker.
The cake baker got off the hook. although his life's been ruined and the whole business has gone under.
That's so sad.
And then this other decision, it was kind of murky, but you started reading into it. If you read the Huffington Post, it was really murky and really strange. But if you read the real news, it was that the clinics or the Christian refuge, if you will, for women who are pregnant, got nowhere to go, so they go to these crisis centers to help. And my stepmother, she works at one. She says the number one thing that they got to do is they've got to get that girl to hear the heartbeat of the baby.
Right.
Once that,
I've heard that.
Then it's done.
Yeah.
Okay. So well, in California, the liberals say you also got to show those girls how and where they can get a free abortion.
Right. And the decision was,
no, man, you're infringing on the free speech rights of the Christians who are just trying to help save the life of the child.
Real quickly, I'd like to give you my thoughts on just in general, big zoom out, big picture here. The founders who were basing their philosophy on the philosophy of the Enlightenment period just wanted to simplify everything. What they have really done with the Bill of Rights is say two things. In the First Amendment, they say that you can say whatever you want. And in recent years, that's kind of expanded to you can express yourself in any way that you want to. But also the Fifth Amendment, and I'm glad to see this starting to expand with the SCOTUS decision. The Fifth Amendment kind of says the opposite, which also gives you your freedom.
Right.
That you don't have to say something you don't want to say.
Right, you have the right to shut up.
Right, so you could call it the right to remain silent, or you could call it the right to not have to incriminate yourself. I like to expand that more generally. That while in the First Amendment you have the right to say or express yourself and say whatever it is that you want to say, as long as it's not hurting somebody physically. Like my right to swing my fists around end at the point of your nose, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The opposite's also true. You should not be forced to say or do something that is against your conscience.
Yeah, if you are a church, religious organization that is trying to save babies and help stop the genocide, the infanticide that is happening in the black community and the white community and the Hispanic community, if you're trying to help stop that, then why is the government requiring you to at least inform these women on how to continue that?
Yeah.
It's the opposite.
When you bring somebody in for a certain service, you should only have to say whatever the hell you want to say.
Right.
You shouldn't be forced to say a bunch of other stuff.
So this retiring of Justice Kennedy, I had an audio soundbite, but it's too late for it now. Apparently, Justice Kennedy did want to retire last year. This is no surprise. He wanted to stay on one more year because Neil Gorsuch was actually served underneath him, and they worked together. Gorsuch actually worked for Kennedy, and Kennedy wanted to work for another year with Gorsuch on the bench and just extend it one more year. He ended his run, retired. It's not uncommon. You could do it either way. You could do it from the bench, or you could write the president a letter. He wrote the president a letter, said, "I'm done." This is perfect timing, Kerry.
Did he drop the gavel like, I'm out?
No, he didn't do an Obama thing.
Okay.
He said, "I'm out," and this is perfect timing because this is the end of the year for the Supreme Court, and they will reconvene back again in October. So for a new session to begin with a new SCOTUS in place would be absolutely incredible. So Donald Trump tweets out, "I will be making my choice for Justice of the United States Supreme Court on the first Monday after the July 4th holiday."
So we'll have one more show. So we'll be talking about this again next week before we know who he's going to announce. So
July 9th.
July 9th. And are we going to speculate on what the Democrats are going to do about this? Because they're totally up in arms.
Oh, not only Democrats, but it's Susan Collins.
Oh, we've talked about it. There is no other place on the internet where you can listen to any talk radio whatsoever that has said more about Susan Collins than Smith Radio.
I'm just This woman is just wretched off. She said on CNN, because she loves CNN, she's got R in front of her name.
She's a Democrat.
Right.
But I shouldn't say that. She's officially a Republican, but she's a plant.
Absolutely.
She's totally a plant.
I won't support SCOTUS pick hostile to abortion rights.
Because you're a Democrat.
Maine GOP Susan Collins.
Yeah. So I've actually told the RNC. They've called me up and said, yeah, we'd like to have some more money from you. You know, can you pledge $50, $100, $300, whatever? And I said, listen, I got a problem with you guys. You guys keep allowing people to have that R next to their name that do not deserve that. They don't deserve the R. And they tried to explain to me. I said, listen, when you let somebody like Susan Collins have an R next to her name, as an incumbent, she's probably not going to get primaried. That's just the nature of the beast.
Right.
So you're eliminating the possibility for an actual real Republican, a conservative, a Trump supporter, whatever it is, from being able to run for the seat in Maine because you won't expel her from the party. And their response to that was, well, that's not a very democratic way to run things. Listen.
If she's not in your party, then how in the hell can you support her?
Well, not only that, but parties are not the government.
No.
And also, parties are not democracy.
No,
it's not a government. It's not democracy. It's a party.
You can leave your party at any given time, and many have.
You should be able to be expelled. I bet you that it's not unprecedented if you go way back in history, and I think it should be done more often. I think that the party on a national level should be able to come together.
Didn't Lieberman, while he was in office, switch to independent from Democrat?
He did switch to independent. He actually ran as the vice presidential nominee for Gore,
right?
Because remember, it was Gore, Lieberman, and everybody made bumper stickers that said "Sore Loserman" because they lost. They lost fair and square. So I'll never. Yeah, Lieberman was the vice presidential nominee, Democrat.
Right.
He switched after that to independent because he's not a Marxist.
Yeah, he had a falling out with the party. So,
but he left on his own volition. What I'm saying is as a party chairman, I think Matt, whatever his name is, the chairman of the Republican Party, should be able to say, "Whoa, guys, we need to come together and take a vote. Should we allow Susan Collins and John McCain, we don't have to worry about him because he's not running again.
No.
Graham and all these people. Should we allow them to have the R? Because it's tying up the possibility for somebody to come along in a primary who is actually conservative. Why should we?
And going to help push Donald Trump's agenda forward. I mean, if she is angry, this is Susan Collins. I will protest Trump if he nominates hostile. If it's hostile to abortion rights.
The Republican Party should minimally censure, but it doesn't really do anything other than give you a bad mark, whatever. But there's this mistake in people's minds that you're somehow thwarting a Democrat process or you're somehow taking away democracy by saying that Susan Collins is no longer allowed to have an R name. No, she gets to keep her Senate seat.
Right.
It's just that when she runs the next time around, she's not allowed to have an R next to her name.
She can have a D, an E, an F,
an I. Independent.
Go triple X, whatever.
Susan Collins.
Well, I'm saying because what's his face wants to run for president. Triple X.
The wrestler?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because there was a guy, a rapper, Triple X, that just got murdered.
Oh, Triple X Tenacious.
Yeah, he got
he got whacked.
Yeah.
In a hotel room.
No, it was in his car.
Oh, whoops.
It was like a
slip.
Lamborghini or something. It's like yeah.
Whoops. Anyway, good positive news. Donald Trump had a huge rally this week. It was really, really good up in Wisconsin, talking about nothing but jobs, jobs, jobs. They broke ground on a facility that's going to create 15,000 new jobs in Wisconsin. Huge rally. 12,000 attended, only 6,000+ were able to get in. So in his speech, he said,
You always can fill the seats.
Yeah, you are the super elite. President Donald Trump, this is Breitbart News. Trump praised his supporters as the super elite on Monday during a campaign rally. Oh, sorry, this one was in South Carolina. So he did 2 of them.
Okay.
In South Carolina, you know you are, he asked, you're the super elites. The crowd roared with approval. Trump explained that he did not care about the current establishment elites and said that he was changing the title to fit his supporter, the super elites. So that statement was said when he was in South Carolina. And then he also went to Wisconsin, had one there, talked about jobs and talked about, this is the 1-year anniversary, 6-month anniversary for the tax cuts, which has been doing phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Totally changing around the economy. It's just, it's giving the money back to the people. You shouldn't take so much money out of the labor, production, and possessions of the people for the government. It's just ridiculous.
Harley Davidson, I never really liked you back in the day. A lot of the stuff you made, you guys invented the toolkit that went on the front of the motorcycle because it broke down all the time.
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
You guys, if the saying is, if the Harley Davidson isn't leaking oil, it ain't a Harley Davidson.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That should be like their ad campaign.
Yeah, bad news, man. But if you guys feel that you can make motorcycles in another country better than you can in America, go ahead. But my Donald Trump told you.
It's going to ruin their brand. I mean, think about it. You could buy a Harley in America that was made in America, but just the thought that somebody in Thailand is driving around in a Harley Davidson, same exact one as yours, produced in Taiwan
to somewhere, and you know what? If you think you're going to buy a brand new Buick, think twice. That's made in China. First of the giant corporation, a motor company corporation, first ever to have a car produced in China. So that's GM.
They're shipping all the Buicks from China.
Yep.
Wow.
Not good. And then lastly, my Donald Trump out of the deal. Hey, gas prices are going up, aren't they?
A little bit. It went from about $2.20 to about $2.80.
Yeah, I'm a little
around here.
Yeah, I'm a little irritated about it. Donald Trump tweeted out about high gas prices. He said, just spoke to Kim Salman of Saudi Arabia and explained to him that because of the turmoil and dysfunction in Iran and Venezuela, I'm asking the Saudi Arabia to increase oil production, maybe up 2 million barrels to make up the difference in prices because they're too high. He said, all right, man, I got you.
I got you, bro.
All right.
All right. Hey, that's the art of the deal.
I mean, who does that? When was the last time you ever heard of that being happened?
Well, I mean, it's like people want to hear from Trump. And if they have, wow, the bell got me. Cat's always complaining about the bell. Cat, it got me this time. Got me.
Oh, my God.
Would you turn it off? I got to do it again? No. Oh, man, he's going to give us the double whammy.
No, I got it. It's all right.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so anyway, the art of the deal, people want to hear from Trump. When they call him, they're just like, yes, I want to make you happy because I want to be cool. I want you to like me. So whatever you want, you can have it.
How about that turn of events? God bless America. God bless you guys. We'll see you next week.
With unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.